Good everyone. A big sigh, relax, and a bit of work. Thank you for attending to Kuaka, which is standing committee between Parliament Council.
Kaini tātou. Ai huri ki te rā, ai huri ki te ao, piti kina mai ko te māramatanga, paongianga ki te o te wānanga, ki ngā hua manawa nui, manawa roa, manawa tapiti. Here ki ngā tua, here ki ngā tūpuna, here ki taihoro nukurangi ka haka maua, kia tīna, aumi e, hui e. A kātira i tikana kia hakatūwhera i ko tātou hui, i runga ngā mihi hakatau, i ngā whini whanaunga ko tatu mai ki roto i tēnei o tō tātou nei ruma. I raro hoki i te tāhuhu o tō tātou whare kōrero e tū mai nei. Nō reira, i te pāpā Sam, te whanaunga toa Wallace, nau mai haere mai ki roto i tō tātou nei whare. Nō ngā tau ki muri, ko wai o tēnei whare, hei whare kōrero, mo tēnā tangata, e tuai he māngai hei kanohi mō tō tātou rohe, puta noa i te taitoke rau whānui o tira i te hikuru tika, nā kua whai kanohi Māori i roto i tēnei o tō tātou nei whare. Nō reira tēnei te haka tūwhera i o mātou ngākau, o mātou ringaringa, mātou hakaaro, kia tuitui, kia whatu i te kahu o te ora, kia tuitui, kia whao i te waka o te ora, kia hau mai kūtau kei wainga nui a mātou, nā, kia haka kotahi ai, ko ngā kōrero, ko ngā hihia, ko ngā manako, ko ngā moimoia, ko ngā wawata, ko ngā tini whanaunga e nongo nei ki roto i te hiko o te ika. E whaipatanga ana hoki ki ngā iwi puta noa, ngā motu o Aotearoa. Nō reira kia koutou e ngā whanaunga, nau mai, au mai ki roto i te tātou nei whare i raro ngā tini manakitanga o mātou. Ngā kaikauni hera o tira o tō tātou kahika, te kōwhai, te tumu, a gai, me ngā kai mahi e noho mai nei. O tira i a rātou mā, e tūhono no mai nei, matihiko nei, mihi ana kia tātou. Hare te mea kua waira tā pāmati, e pakaru o koutou taringa. Ko ngā mihi, e mihi hakatau i a koutou. Reira tēnā koutou. Kia ora mai tā.
Gloria ki te tenga
And just a quick mention, as I said, nice to have toa in our whahu. Toa, this is Casey's house. So you know the no.
So nothing changes.
So nothing changes. Nothing. Her house, this house, all the houses.
Tono au e taku rangatire e Harry te raputo e tumi. Te rangatire tapu te rau te koe. Te rau te koe nāu I tuku te whuni. Te rai te reto tāre te hui. Tuka tuku te reo haka moimiti haka pēta ki haka pēta. Te rau te koe te rano hoki tā. Te rano hoki tātou I mate maha te maha. Ka mate pikongia. Ka mate kua koutou. Ina tātou I tangi. Reira, mia ngam. Haere. Ka hari, ka ho mātou no te kahu o taongi. tō mātu nei taitanga mai, pitahi ai tātou. Me ngā kaupapa o ka hiri hira, i moe a tātou tēnei wā. Haria mai e hau te kupu aroha taku rangatira mane, e hara te mea ko hau ko tōna kai niwhi, ka hore. Engari, ke kone au te tautoko, tō mātu nei hiamata, tō mātu nei memo te kakotāna. Mi haka negi a koutou, e te kahika e moku, kōwhai, koutou katoa, kauni e te hiamana e hiu. Tui te tēnā no hoki koutou. Kau hiamana, mea ne. Me ngā kaimahi katoa roto te kauri, tēnā no hoki koutou, tēnā no hoki koutou. Kia ora hui mēno tātou. Ahiri te puna o ngā puhi nui tonu tōna whangatau i e muke puke ana waiho ki whiria te paia. Te hiri te kaua ora hiri e kaua ora hiri e. Ka nui wena ko te taku moheo, maha hoki ngā wāringa o tēnei waiata. Engari, i runga no te kaua ora hiri me tō mātou nei tino whakaaro, tino kōrero tūpuna mea nei, ka mipiti tētahi katoto tētahi, he puna kei hokianga, he puna kei tau Māori. Ka mipiti tētahi katoto tētahi. Engari, taku titiro, taku tūpuna ko tēnei rātu ni, e hana te puna wai, he puna tāngata pūpia tātou tēnā no ki tātou tōra.
Okay, quickly, we've created an opportunity in front of you. We just to celebrate some of the things that we've achieved. Remember all the green shoots. So the first thing, we met last Thursday, and we reaffirmed our commitment to this table through having a relationship with the Crown and supporting whānau district council go. No other person has gone before. So we've got Tor and Wallace, Peter and Sam alongside others in the room, looking for those shared opportunities that can articulate aspirations of our whānau hapu iwi and just code for our communities. Second is Charlie, welcome. So Charlie Billington is Whānau District Council's new Lead Manager of Corporate Services. He's got the note about the dress code, everybody else had it. So, welcome. Yes,
Me on tie, Steve.
But Charlie, you got a little moment to talk about why you're here and who you are.
Thank you. Well, thank you everyone for the introduction. So I'm Charlie Billington. I'm a chartered accountant. My professional experience works, I've been in the investment management industry and the banking industry in London and more recently in property investment. My wife and my 3-year-old son are very happy with the opportunity to move to Northland and bring some of the value in our commercial sort of background to help assist with the strategy and operations of the Whānau District Council. So I very much look forward to working with staff and with elected members in the future. I appreciate there's coming from a different background, a lot that I need to bring myself up to speed on. So I look forward to working with everybody and downloading as much as I can and helping the community. Thank you.
So just another opportunity to celebrate Moko. Welcome. We were kept by those tauiwi constructs. Well done, you.
Thank you very much. I am pleased to now have officially in my hands a Master of Education specialising in Māori medium education with a dissertation on utilising the maramataka to excel in learning te reo Māori.
Well done. Judy.
Kia ora tātou, ngā mihi kia tātou I hui mai te rānei. Ngā mihi kia koe e tāmati I tūwhera te hui. Ki ngā manuhiri I tai mai te rānei. Kia koe hoki e pita. Aha ko tō tūreiti e mōhau. Hanui o mahi ngā wā katoa I te taho ina si. Ngā kaupapa o Ngāti Hini, ngā kaupapa o Ngāpu I Nui Tonu. No reira, mihi atu kia koe, kia tātou katoa. Just, te, ai tautoko ngā mihi kia moko, I whiwhi tāna tohu makaranga, I roto I te whare wānanga o Waikato, ka mi tō te mihi kia koe, mahi ana tērā mahi me tēnei hoki. Me mihi hoki au ki te rōpū o te kaunihira, I tū haka ngā hau, I tērā marama I te Māori comps. Nā mihi kia koutou Lani, Dina, Mārema, koutou katoa I tū I mua te aroaro o Taitokirau. Ka mihi hoki ki ngā tīma e whā e putātu I tērā whakatatai ko Muri Whenua, ko Hātea, Nauri o Marumaru. Me te pua, e haere ana ki te matatini. No reira, mihi atu ki aua rōpū. Me mihi hoki ki ngā kauwhakahaere te reo Taitokirau, I whakahaere te Taitokirau kura tuarua te festival. Mō ngā kura tuarua o Taitokirau. Ka mihi atu ki te kura o Kaihau, me ngā tini kauwhakahaere ngā kaiako kapahaka Māori Performing Arts. E mea ana I nai nei te ao haka, he tohu tira, a new qualification e mea ana te ao haka, kāre ko Māori Performing Arts. Engari, he mahi āri. No reira, ka mihi atu ki tērā, atu I tērā, e maha ngā kaupapa I tēnei rā, no reira, he pai kia tuku te rākau no kia koe I Harry, ki whanaunga no Ngāti Kuri, ngā mihi kia koe.
Tēnā pū. E mahu e roto I waku kōrero hakatau I ngā whanaunga nei, te mihi atu ki te hunga mate ko whetū rangitia. He rau e tahi kōrero me ana kia kaue hakahua ingoa. Kei mahu e te tahi ki muri, engari e tika ana kia hakau ingoa. I tō tātou nei whanaunga, a Gail Shepherd, I mate ohorere, I mate aitua, I ngā rangitata nei. E mihi ana I rungi I te nui, tōna aroha, no ana mahi haka tutu ki aia, I roto I ngā hapori nonohi nei. O whāngarei, o kohu, ka mutu ki taku mōhio tahi o nuia ka nuke atu ki roto o hauhora. No reira, o ngā mihi ka uta, ki rungi o nā mahi o tira, ki rungi I tōna whānau e noho ana, kātua pauri I tōna kātahi kārua. Ki taku Crainy Whaia, Francis Hogg, ni Albert, I mate I nā nahira. Ko ngā hakaritenga ka tatu atu tana tinana ki roto o Kōwhata, kei Wainganui I te uri o Huatakaroa, ka noho ki ko mō ngā pua I rua ka tahi ka hoki atu ki roto o Māmere, kei raro I ngā rekereke o Maunga Taniwha, kei Wainganui ngā koiwi me ngā whirau o ngā mātua tupuna. No reira kia rātou mā te hunga mate, e kore wenei mihi ki oti, ko koutou kua ngaro atu I te tirohanga kanohi, engari o koutou mahi ka noho tonu ki te pai o maumahara ake tonu atu. Nā ka hoki mai waku rārangi kōrero ki a tātou, te runga ora e noho mai nei, e tautoko ana I ngā mihi kua mihia. And I just wanted to add on to the kōrero and congratulations to our kahi ka moko who is obviously the kahika of a whole district should be front of the whole Northland. But is also a kaiako, also a business owner, and graduated with a Masters of Education. And I have to add, first class honours. So can we have another round of applause for that? South who didn't quite make it to university. First class honours for Moko, he was the top student out of 560 students within his faculty. No, I'm just making that up. And they don't have any jobs or any kids or anything else, they just go study. Tahi anō kaupapa, kura reo ki Whirinaki, he te whakatūwheratanga I ngā pō, to the kura kaupapa Māori o Hokianga, with the gathering of over 200 competent, keen, experts in te ao Māori, te reo Māori, mātauranga Māori, with the likes of te kura tai aho kapea, Quinton Hita, Kingi, Rake Te Tāne, and so forth. So mihi ana ki tēnā kaupapa, he kaupapa tino o rangatira I roto I tō tata ne ao Māori. And also acknowledging that over the weekend, Te Whenua Moemoeā held their kapahaka regionals in the Gold Coast, and making acknowledgement to the 3 teams that qualified for Te Matatini in 2025 ki te Maunga Titoia, I roto Taranaki, Manawa mai Tawhiti, Te Kapa o te Hau Tawhiti, and Te Ātawhai Pū Manawa. Mihi ana kia rātou ngā kapa kei te pāpaka nui o Māui, ka ki mai ki ngā whenua o Aotearoa, ka tū ki te matatini a te tau I tū mai nei. Koe nā no wake kororu tēnā wā, tēnā koe te hamangu.
Okay. Those online, kia ora. Margaret, are you online? We can't quite see you.
You're talking to me, Harry.
No, Margaret.
Matu.
Margaret Mutu. If your name was Mate Mutu, you'd be. Kia ora. Just looking for Margaret. Okay. Well, we'll just keep an eye out for Margaret. Margaret wished to have a moment to speak about the shaping of the rating policies and providing a particular view that aligns with the iwi hapa whānau and addressing the asymmetry that sits in the rating policies, not only in whānau, councils around New Zealand. So we'll wait for that moment. So let's go to the formal part of the meeting. Apologies. Do you have any apologies?
So through the chair, we have apologies from Katie Murray, Ame Kahiri, and Hilda from
Mahia Nathan.
Mahia Nathan.
Kaupori.
I thought I saw him online.
Oh,
Yeah, here he is.
you know, good on Mahia. I'll take that back. Well,
Okay, so just note those minutes, those apologies, apologies. So while we dealing with formality, just someone to accept apologies, please. Move apologies. Thanks. Noted. Okay, let's go to again notes of declarations of interest. Just out of courtesy to everybody moving around complex spaces, it's best to share what areas you're playing in, so we can keep everybody safe. So, like that. And then let's move down to item 5.1 in our agenda, confirmation of the minutes. So as we move through the minutes and we'll have opportunities to talk to the minutes. People wish. So just someone to move. Minutes. Second. Okay. So going to the minutes proper. Discussions, thoughts.
Just on just page 12, just for the insert of overstatements, we have Te Reo Māori, obviously, but page 12, Porito, Haku, Māori, Porito, 6.4, 6.3, page 12.
Any other thoughts to add to the minutes? Maybe we need to look at them as what does it look like in blind. Okay, on that basis, all in favour of accepting the minutes? Against? Staying. Thank you. 7.1. Good about two, you're probably familiar with this. So, part of this topic, we're exploring stretch and obligations required by Farm Officer Council to meet some policy settings from central government. So, can we hand it over to you about some of the legislative forensics we need to deal with, and then the fact that after that we can design a response from this table to lift up to the council table. All yours. I know you got a presentation. We do have, sorry, we do have time to see it and for you to speak to it. Pretty quick. Picking up things that of benefit and threatens. So.
Harry, sorry, where are we in this?
Yeah, pages.
5.1. 7.1.
What? 7.1 or 5.1?
Section page 14.
Page 14, 5.1.
14 to 27.
My name's Dale Osowski. I'm the electoral officer of Farnborough District Council. We're just here to talk about the representation review and things like that. But Ben Rosser from our office is going to lead the charge here, and then I'll come in shortly.
Cassie, did you want to put in the presentation?
Sure.
Okay, kia ora tātou. So like Dale said, I'm Ben Rosser from Election Services. You're probably quite familiar with Dale. He's the electoral officer for Farnborough District Council. Perhaps not so familiar with me. So what's going to happen is I'm going to just give a brief introduction and overview of the representation review process, what parts of the process have occurred to date and what the current status is. Talk briefly about the current arrangements, give some background, summary of the conversation so far, an update from the workshop on the 9th of April, and then Dale is going to talk to the government announcement, which is about
There's lots of loving going on. So. Just what we do.
The current arrangements are up there. You'll be familiar with three general wards, 6 general ward councillors,
elected from those wards. One district-wide Māori ward, 4 Māori ward councillors elected across the district, and then 9 members from 3 subdivided wards. So that is the current arrangements. That's the starting point for this review. Go to the next. Right, so what is a review? It's a review of those arrangements I just showed you. Review of the council membership, how many councillors there are, what the basis of election is, how many wards are they elected from wards, how many wards, where the boundaries of the wards are, how many members from each ward. Of course, there's the option for all councillors to be elected at large or district-wide across the district. You can also have a mixture of some councillors elected to wards and some elected district-wide. As well as a review of the community boards. Are they retained? Are they modified? Disestablished altogether? How many community board members you have? Councillors appointed to community boards, independent councillors. Go to the next slide. Right, so here's the process. The first thing to do is to seek feedback from the community. That process has already occurred. It's used for the basis of the initial proposal. So we get a quick look at what the community thinks about the arrangements, and anything in particular that the community would like us to explore. Then there was a workshop on the 9th of April that summarised the community feedback, and then an initial proposal is resolved. Once that occurs, a public notice goes out of the initial proposal. That opens up the submission period for of the community to submission if they wish. Those submissions are then heard and a final proposal is resolved. That starts a process for any appeals or objections from the community. And if any of those are received, then the matter goes off to the local government and will hear those appeals and objections, make a determination about the arrangement. So there were some key action points for this review. Should the district-wide Māori ward be divided into 2, 3 or 4 wards? So currently, as I said, there are 4 Māori councillors elected district-wide, but there is the option to divide that ward into more than 1 ward. Should the Whatuwhiwhi subdivision of the Tihiku Community Board renamed? It was suggested the Awanui subdivision be a more appropriate name. That was another key action point. And then should there be a review of the councillors appointed to boards, including the Māori board? Those were the key action points used for the preliminary consultation. Like I said, that process has happened. There was a survey that went out between February and March, and there were some drop-in sessions for members of the community to stop by. This is heard. Some of the questions that were asked, do you think you're fairly and effectively represented by the council? Do you want to see more councillors appointed to the community boards? What about Māori ward councillors being appointed to community boards? The question about the Māori ward, should it be retained as one district-wide Māori ward, or should it be split up? And then how about that? Name change to the subdivision. There were some other suggested names there. So like I said, that process has happened. Feedback was summarised at council workshop on the 9th of April. Next slide. Some snapshots of the feedback, which is part of the report that you got there, so we can rattle through those. Right, so the feedback from the survey was used to give us a bit of a steer about what we should be looking into for these key action points. The Ngātai Takaro Māori ward was suggested to be retained as one district-wide Māori ward. It would still be 4 Māori ward councillors elected across the district, but the direction we got was that it should remain as one district-wide Māori ward. The Whatuwhiwhi subdivision and the Tihiku Community Board should be renamed as the Karikari Awanui subdivision. And then, yes, the direction we received on the Māori ward councillors should be able to be appointed to community boards. Those were the three key issues that we received at the workshop in April. There are two recommendations at the end of this presentation, one of which relates to representation review, which is that this committee should endorse that direction that we received. Now, the other recommendation relates to the government announcement of Māori awards, which Dale is going to talk a bit about.
Okay, thank you.
Got it, Ben. Ben's our next generation coming through. So you can see some of the mantle there. Right. Māori awards. 4th of April, the Minister of Local Government made an announcement, which you're probably all familiar with. The government plans to introduce the Māori electoral Māori awards and constituencies amendment bill. So in that statement that was released by the Minister, indicates the bill will require councils that established Māori wards or constituencies without a poll to either conduct a poll on Māori wards or constituencies alongside the 2025 triennial elections or resolve to disestablish Māori wards or constituencies. So this council established Māori wards without a poll, so one of those two must apply should the bill proceed along this basis. The second part of proposed bill is to reintroduction of the ability for electors to demand a poll if council introduces Māori wards or constituencies effective after the 2025 election. So if you recall, or may recall, that there were poll provisions in the Local Electoral Act which enabled 5% of electors to demand a poll. That was removed in 2021 by the Labor government, and this is being simply reintroduced by the coalition government. The estimated timeline for this bill, it is to be introduced in May, so it has yet to be drafted, or it's being drafted now. There will be a select committee process, so there'll be 4 weeks for interested parties to make submissions, which I suggest council should do in June, with the enactment of the bill late July. Next slide. The Māori wards poll must be held alongside the 2025 elections unless disestablished. So there's your two choices again under the proposed bill. If a poll is held in conjunction with the 2025 elections, then the outcome is binding. So it's a binding poll for 2 triennial elections. So that could be 2028 and 2031. So Māori ward councillors elected at the 2025 election will remain in office until the 2028 election. So it all depends on the outcome of that. If the outcome of the poll is Māori wards should be disestablished, then a further representation review would be required in the 2027 to 2028 election. So you can appreciate when you do a representation review, there are a number of factors that we must take into consideration. One of them is Māori wards, and therefore the Māori electoral population gets removed. So look at that formula, and then the general electoral population looks at the general assessments. If we go down the track, which we're likely to do so, with the 2025 elections, that's cost is reasonably minimal, $5,000 to $10,000, and that's really just another issue, another election, or another issue with the main elections in 2025. But before I move on, is there any questions on that particular aspect? I'm sure there may well be. It's a fairly sobering subject. Please don't shoot the messenger, but that's what the government has decided. That's what's been released, and at the moment, this is what we are indicating to having to undertake.
Also, I think I already know the answer to this question. So I don't see our council disestablishing our Māori ward when we are in effect in this report supporting the continuation of the single ward itself. So that would mean that would trigger when this legislation passes the requirement for us to have at the next election. Now, our next election the poll will sit alongside us voting for representatives to council and our community boards. but the poll will go to everybody.
That's correct.
So for, if you're on the Māori roll, you'll be voting for your Māori ward councillors and also voting on whether or not you want to see them stay. If you're on one of our 3 general wards, you'll be voting for your general ward councillors. But also you will be asked if you think we should have a Māori ward or not, even though you won't be voting for Māori.
Everyone gets to vote yes or no on Māori wards. And also alongside that, well, there will likely to be another poll on the region. The region has Māori constituency, so there's likely to be 2 poll questions. Do you wish to? Yes. So you're quite right. Those on the Māori roll will be voting for the Māori ward councillors alongside, or do you want to continue?
Do you want to keep them after this go or not?
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wallace, was there any name? Matty. Wallace and Matty.
Matty. Can I just ask a question? That estimated cost of the poll, 5,000 to 10,000, is that a referendum?
Yeah, that's the poll. Yeah, it's called a poll or referendum.
All right.
Yeah, it's
Why
the
I
same
asked that
effect.
question? Why I asked that question is because that's exactly what John Carter wanted before we voted for Māori seats, and he made it quite clear that that was going to cost a ratepayer 70,000. So where the hell did we get this 5,000, 10,000 from? Is he telling fibs or what?
If I could answer that, the smallest amount, the 5 to 10,000, is held in conjunction with the training election. So it's just another tack-on cost, if you like, just another extra labour costs and explanatory costs. The 70,000 that was touted earlier on was for a standalone poll. So that's where you just do the poll. So the poll cost has to do all the postage and mailers and all that sort of thing as one issue. With the training elections, it's just one of several. Does that help?
Yeah, good. Thank you.
Thanks, Matty.
So it is going to cost that right now, but on top of that, this extra cost, because we have to pay for the election itself.
Yes, the election is already budgeted for. You have to do that, the mayor and councillors and region. This is just an additional cost with this poll.
Wallace?
Dale, might be a silly question, but I presume general wards aren't under review.
No, not quite right. They're not under review. But depending on the outcome of a poll, for example, we have to relook at the whole, recast the whole reorganisation, the structure of representation to reflect that.
On a population percentage basis?
Yes.
Sure. Hey, look, I don't know if one informs the other, but just the first part is why didn't this council go for it for the first time around when it came through? And I suspect is that because you applied the sniff test here and knew that it wouldn't pass muster with the population that we have.
I couldn't comment on that. That was a political decision back.
So if we were to do a standalone poll, the cost would have been like 70 to 80,000 dollars. What we decided to do instead was an informal survey. That survey had, off the top of my head, 498. Oh, that's a very specific number. It had 498 respondents, of which 86% were in favour of establishing our ward.
86%.
Yeah, of around 500 respondents. To put that in context, I think in terms of long-term plan submitters, we had around 850 that same year. So it's quite a good turnout.
Māori roll or general?
It was open to everyone.
One more, just reflecting back to the Patuwhiwhi Awanui decision. It worries me that where that is connecting 2 separate parts of the peninsula. Awanui is part of my kapiti, and Patuwhiwhi is part of my cousin.
is there any way of including Awanui in the ward, in the main ward?
This is the time to be, when a representation review is underway, this is the time to look at your boundaries. Council gave us the steer just to look at the name rather than the actual boundaries. If council was to give us a steer to relook at boundaries, we could certainly do so. But from memory, we changed some boundaries at the last review a couple of years ago. Awanui was
part of the local electoral act for establishing subdivisions, which are the boundaries we set for community boards, which is what we're talking about now, is it has to meet a formula of a population formula so that there's a similar amount of people being represented by a subdivision member. The North Cape subdivisions and the then Whatuwhipi subdivision, they were out of whack, so we had to move our boundary around to try and balance out the number of people being represented. So I would say that it's not always ideal when you've got intersecting communities of interest around iwi and hapu. But if you can get more people to move home or to have some more tamariki, it won't even out the population. This is the same thing that we have in Whangaroa. Whangaroa's population plays up a little bit as well. But from memory, that was what ended up happening.
What the mayor was referring to is when you subdivide a community board, but as you must compare with wards, and you must comply with what's called the plus or minus 10% rule. So you've got to have generally each elected member represents about the same number of people within plus or minus 10%. And as it stood before, that fell outside. So we had to do some nudging, basically.
And I get that. It's just that in our world, Māori world, it divides.
Wallace, let's hold that thought, because in the process of drawing lines and meeting constructs, there will always be gaps. My encouragement is to find the bridges across those gaps and towards those.
Sorry, just one more, and then Casey will tell me to shut up. Just one more question here. So look, you know, in terms of this amendment bill that's coming up, I know that probably there would be a consensus around putting something into the select committee to go, we oppose this. They'll go, thank you so much, moving on. If we were to, are we confident, are we worried that if we do move to a poll situation that we may not see our Māori councillors around this table? Or should we be pretty comfortable given one of the earlier reviews had an 86%? What's our sensitivity telling us about this?
You don't get a choice. Under the bill, you must go to a poll or resolve to rescind.
Well, no, that's my question. If we go to a poll, are we confident that we'll be able to get the numbers for this or not? If we're not, then we need to think about it.
Okay, let's hold that thought while we come around and wrap our arms around the soft shooting.
Yeah, I was actually going to touch on that while we're speaking about Māori wards. I think those of us who were quite heavily involved in campaigning, what are we? It's 2022 now, and the voter turnout or the electors turnout for voting, especially those who were on the Māori roll who vote for Māori ward councillors, was very low. Was very, very low. And actually, I think it was up to around 10,000 Māori missed out on the opportunity to have their say.
9,600 voters on the Māori roll for the Whānau district did not actually turn out to vote. Around 14,000 on our Māori roll for the Whānau district and only around 4,000 votes.
Yeah. So if we're asking the question,
voter turnout all up is it's only 43%, I think it was.
Yeah. So yeah, it is a worry. And I might be just saying that from my personal opinion, but and it's always been a worry because we know that Māori are disinterested or they have post-colonial trauma of governments making promises or, government entities making promises and not following through with them. So you know, you go to the Hokianga, you speak to a lot of those whānau, you go to Whangaroa, you go up to Te Roroa, you go right up to Te Hiku, and there's a huge disinterest with voting. And so going into a segue in 2022 and during that campaign, and what I would like to see moving forward, while we have Te Kapua Taone in the room, is I guess for a bigger support and encouragement with the Electoral Commission and finding a way that we can find venues that are more suitable for Māori to have their say. One example was the pop-up Te Reo Māori voting station at Te Wā Kaipuhe last year, which hosted up to around 400 voters per day. I think it was during the last week of voting. So if we have members from Te Kapua Taone in here who can help support those initiatives so that we don't have to feel afraid, then I would implore onto our members now to start actually formulating a mahere on what it looks like in 2025, because like Dale has said, we have the non-binding and binding referendum, which is most likely to be a binding referendum. So it has to go ahead, but it won't come into effect until 2028. However, when we look forward to our future, we need to start planning now.
Can I just touch on that planning piece? That's where strategy needs to come into this. So strategically making sure that the people of the whānau are well informed, and a yes campaign goes ahead to keep the Māori ward. We don't get to decide though, voters get to decide, and you look at whatever that decision is. But we're not in isolation here. We're one of 45 councils that are also being affected by this legislation, which means there will also be a national campaign. So when you're sitting around the table with national iwi chairs or with your counterparts across the motu, looking at what does the national strategy look like for this, what does our local strategy, what is our regional strategy, because whāngarei, I don't know, I think Kaipara are going to vote to disestablish their ward, but whāngarei and Northern Region of Wāsia and Taitokera are also affected by this legislation. So there's all those different levels we can look into. And yeah, go big with what it looks like to inform not just Māori, but acknowledging that 10,000 Māori didn't vote, but everyone across the whānau. But I'm guessing it's 50% required to see what that looks like. It's not. It hasn't been. It's been successful in the past. Wairoa District Council held a binding poll for the establishment of their Māori ward, and it came back in favour. They've got similar population demographic to us here in the whānau. One of the good things about this legislative change, because there's one good thing up there, and it's increasing the voting period because it's postal voting, and I think they've increased it by 10 days or so. Yeah. So it gives more time.
But it doesn't mean more excuses to wait around as soon as the voting polls up, because we have early voting as well.
No, we have postal voting, but it's a longer period, 32 days instead of 22 days now.
Yeah. Okay, get in as soon as the doors open.
Thanks, Timothy. Go Sam Wallace, Peter, then Guy.
Just two questions, if I may, through co-chairs. $10,000 to purpose or to include in the next triennial election, the question, the requirement of the bill. I understand that, I get that. This is not necessarily a question for staff, I think, but perhaps just see the thought with members. Would the council consider a program of, or an information drive or an information program so that voters in the whānau are well informed about the option, which is going to cost more than $10,000? Have you done any costing on such a thought?
No, I haven't. The 5 to 10,000 is 5,000 with just a minimal amount of information that goes out with the voting pack. 10,000 is if we put a lot more information through a separate flyer, that sort of thing. I haven't done any costing about the broader common strategy around the issue, other than make a comment that council itself under current legislation must remain neutral. So council can't have a stance, vote yes or vote no, it must just be focusing on the issue, what's being passed, basically, and leave it over to community groups to then have their views on yes or no. So I just need to make that clear that council itself must remain neutral.
So that was my first of two questions, and you may have answered my second question. So just recapping, the first of two questions is whether council management has thought to provide thinking, even costings around a well-structured information campaign. That was the first one. The second one, I think you might have answered. Can you describe for me where in the proposed bill it precludes or prohibits a council from resolving, if it chooses to, undertake a yes campaign?
It's under the existing local electoral regulations, regulation 10 or something like that, that any poll or referendum undertaken by a local authority, the local authority must remain neutral. So I've got that here with me if you wanted to see the chapter and verse.
So it's a poll. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Well, I'm interested, not in this meeting because I know we're restricted for time, but I'm interested in teasing it out with you later on, if I may, because it seems to me that there will be a legislative requirement to undertake a poll, and then the provision that you've referred to, I don't know it, I accept it clearly relates to that. I'm wondering whether that of itself actually prohibits or precludes a council from undertaking its information campaign, essentially a yes campaign. I don't want to burden this meeting with that, but perhaps I can point out.
I think what we can take is the fact that the previous council resolved to establish Young Ātai Tūkero Māori Ward 2 election terms, as meaning that this council was in favour, and by deciding to not disestablish, I think we can take from that this council was in favour of retaining its Ngā Taua Tūkero Māori Ward. It's just the way that we word it. But the official correspondence that comes out of this council, though, as an organisation, has to be neutral around that.
You can't go out and say vote yes.
But I mean, as individuals, we can say what we want. I mean, when we had the legalising, when we had those two referendums at our general election, last election or whatever it was, there was some politically, you know, the parliament was neutral, and all of the correspondence was just to give you information so you can decide. But individual MPs could say, I'm voting yes, or I'm voting no. The Prime Minister decided, I'm not going to say how I'm voting, whether or not to legalise cannabis or the end of life choice bill, whatever, because I don't want my decision to influence how others are going to vote. I want you to make it. So I guess it's reading between the lines around what we can do as individuals and reflect on what this organisation, Whanau District Council, has done in the past as a way of saying it without actually saying it.
Can I just qualify that though, please, Moko? Those councils are not yet resolved, not to go really. I accept that that is probably the prevailing feeling, but we haven't actually formally resolved to do that. And we probably do need to tidy that up.
And that's where perhaps this table could elevate that collective thought. Wallace and.
I was just going to make a comment on that. We can see a flaw in this system, right? With net migration at 173,000, right? And you take Kaupapa and the biggest contributor in population to Kaupapa, it's not a big secret who that is. And so that migration and shift of people from Tamaki into that region compromises the Māori ward system. And so how do we look to highlight that so that the system understands there's a need for change?
Put it in the council submission, because lots of submissions primarily against, there are some for, but that's the avenue. Now, what Parliament then does with that, or the Select Committee does with that, whether they just push it to one side or actually take note of it.
This Parliament?
this part, this select committee, which is made up of all parties.
I notice a level of cynicism when you see this. Peter?
Kia ora koutou, Harry, tēnā koe, Hilda, tēnā koe mō ngō mihi, tēnā tātou katoa. These questions or comments and questions aren't so much in relation to what Dale's just said, but initially angling more in on the recommendations. I think the introduction of Māori wards has seen the significant change in how council behaves, how it carries out its business, let alone reflected in how this meeting started. I don't need to tell you that, but I'll highlight it because I don't think the recommendations go far enough. Use of the word continuation is all about maintaining the status quo and the status quo as we have it now. So I'd prefer an approach by council to not to maintain things, but to enhance what has been put in place in this last triennium. In saying that, the part I'm not quite sure about is that the one Māori ward that is generated by the percentage of Māori people on the roll equates to 4, right?
You can have 4 Māori ward councillors elected from either 1, 2, 3 or 4.
I understand that. I understand that. I'm just asking for the number.
Yes, that's correct.
4.
Yep.
How often is that analysed and changed either up or down? With our daughter having 4 kids under 5 recently, I would imagine that the demographic for Māori is going up. So my question is, when does that happen? That's the first question. I also note in the page 15 and the questions and the graphs, question 3 is quite stark, isn't it? Do you support iwi reps being appointed to council with voting rights? And it's very small, but 41 as opposed to 58. The part I wanted to ask a question about is more question 4, because other says 34%. I wanted to get a sense of what the 34% actually said. Do they want more than 4? Or did they, what was the trend in the other?
We have taken out the commentary that came with this because a lot of it was quite racist.
That's what I thought.
And we've asked our staff to ensure that they front foot not to say that we can't handle seeing commentary, but just anything that is overtly inappropriate to say to what the question is asking, we've asked does not come to this sort of table or be highlighted in the public's committee either. So
yeah, so let me just to finish off my part. My thoughts and position on this is very clear because they were printed in the Northern Advocate yesterday, at least the online version. So I'm really supportive of what Sam said about education is not the right word, but getting a strategy out there to keep people better informed in case they're afraid of something.
Mr. Chair, can I suggest something? We're dealing with, I know it's sort of the same thing, but it is a little bit different. This paper in front of us is for what our proposed, what's it called, Dale? Our initial proposal for our representation. Take it to, do you agree to continue with 1 Māori ward rather than 4? Do you agree with changing the the Whatuwhipi subdivision's name to Karikari Awanui to reflect the communities that it suits better? On top of that, though, we've got the fact that our Māori ward is at risk with legislative change, which will see us forced to do a poll. So what I'm suggesting, and to Anne's point too, that we haven't formally resolved as a council not to disestablish or to disestablish. We actually need another paper to come to us, which deals solely with the potential legislative changes that are coming at us, and then what we will resolve off that foot.
Any resolution can't be until
Until the legislation,
which is the end of July, so you're looking at August. sort of, yeah.
Is that meet your timeline? So through you, the chair, there is a paper expected to come to council on the 9th of May based on the discussion around the table today to decide on the initial proposal for the representation review, which includes.
And our discussion and a report around Māori wards and where we stand on that. That needs to come when we've got a law to actually make a.
Right.
Because right now we don't have a law in place.
That's right.
Guys?
Oh, thanks. I just wanted to note and acknowledge for the committee that the Local Government Act, Dale, correct me if I'm wrong, but I am tasked as CEO, the CEO's office, tasked with facilitating a fair and representative election. So taking on board all the comments, Sam, Peter. My understanding is we can certainly work on a strategy and a plan for next year. Perhaps improve on our track record in terms of educating the electorate and encourage voter turnout. I think those are things we can do. We can't take a side or have a bias in terms of our recommendations, but we can certainly come up with a strategy and a plan to put that all in place. And we're certainly, in terms of council submissions, those will be very representative. And I think the fact that we have Kuaka sitting will help that process. So I'm confident we can add some depth to the process. Steve.
Just noting the numbers sitting around the table at the moment, by my calculation, there's 3 old Pākehā fellows like me, so there's 27%. No, in the council is. But the impact the Māori ward councillors have had at this table, I was here 6 years, a while ago, and back now, they've improved the outcomes. A lot of long-standing issues have been sorted out. I wouldn't be that fearful if I were you. I think you've got it wrong because you've been elected from the general anyway, from my view of it. There's 8 of the 11 here are Māori or Māori descent. Not sure about John usage. Some of the usage. Tupuna, but I'm not sure. But you know, we have a really strong representation right now. 73% I think it is. Yeah. 73% Māori or Māori descent, and it's great. The discussion that needs to go from here back to central government is this works.
Well done. And the last partai to venue.
Oh,
Hilda, just part A of that motion, support the continuation of Ngā Tai o Tokero Māori ward as one district-wide ward. So I had hoped that we would have lots and lots of discussions about, like, if we had this is before these announcements, that we could have the potential of 1, 2, 3 or 4 wards. So that we could, you could either, if you had 4 wards, you could have 1 Māori ward councillor representing 7,000 Māori voters. If you had 3 wards, you would stick with the same boundaries that are there at the moment, Te Hiku, Whangaroa, He Whairangi and Kaikohe Hokianga. If you had 2, which you kind of have an informal operation at the moment, we were all elected at large. Myself and Penetau, we cover Maunga Taniwha North, and Tamati and Babe cover Maunga Taniwha South. And then there was the one, just the general one. And after a little bit of discussion after your last workshop, you know, I was in favour of 4, but didn't really want to be part of doing the colonial process of putting lines through boundaries. where people didn't naturally gather and meet, and a bit like what Wallace was saying, how come Ngai Takoto's over in Karikari? Well, Waimanoni Waimanoni's part of Whatuwhiwhi. So so I didn't really want to be part of that thing, you know, because automatically you do what others have done, is that you put a line through the hokianga and say they're north and they're south. So we came back, the Māori ward councillors, with the one ward. There were problems. You could have 4 nominees all coming from Te Kao or from Matawai. But, you know, so that's, I'm just saying that's the reason that we ended up with 1. We didn't want to do that, didn't want to just shove people into categories to meet a certain, whatever, you know, a numbers game. So hoina anō, tērā te take, ko kei mui a koutou, ko tahi rohe Māori, ko te katoa. It could be problematic if you have 4 from Te Kao. And the second part was that me tuku he tuhinga ki te whomever about haere mātou tino whakai ki tēnei tūrehau. Hoina.
And last wise word.
Just because we are here today, I wondered if this committee wanted to put a recommendation to council to not disestablish our Ngātai o Tokiro board included in this resolution today. I'll move that.
Yeah.
And I total for what Hilda said about the, I was for wards, but I can see the need for having the 1, and I hope that staff have been able to capture some of the comments that have been said to help build our submission, and we could probably use some of what we did for the last bill. I've got a copy of that. Yes, we did a very strong submission last time with John. Yeah, I just want to mihi to our Ngātai o Tokiro councillors and some of the other comments that were in that article yesterday. It's because of you know, escalating construction costs and inflation and insurance costs that there's a proposed 16.5% rates increase, not because of Ngātai o Tokiro councillors, you know, not fighting hard enough to keep our rates down. Oh, exactly, that's what I'm speaking to. Yeah, so kia ora, Chair.
Okay. Did you?
No, I just wanted to raise the fact that Dale appears to have ignored my question.
I took it down and I can reply to you right now. When can you review the number of Māori ward councillors? You have a chance to do that at every representation review. So you look at the latest population figures, Māori electoral population and general electoral population, you do your calculation under the Act, and that's what spills out of the number of Māori and therefore the number of general. So you do that at each review. We've done that just recently because we're under a review and it remains at 4, but we can have the opportunity either in 3 years or 6 years, depending on when the council undertakes its action.
Thank you.
The first thing, Matupita, is determining how many elected members you want at the table. The legislation allows us to have 29 councillors and a mayor, up to 29 councillors and a mayor. At our last representation review, they failed amendment to just double the number from 11 to 22. That would mean 2 Ngātai o Tokiro Māori ward councillors and whatever the balance of that is. Wow, general, but Mayor Carter said it's hard enough to try and chair a meeting with 10, let alone 22.
Okay, so I think we've got enough cordial in the room to guide us through the resolution that we can lift up to the General Council meeting.
So can I move on then, Chair?
Is there more?
One more slide.
Okay.
Which is what we just discussed. If we can move it on, please.
Yeah.
which is just the recommendations. We support the continuation of Ngātai Tautokoro Māori as one district-wide award. And the second one is endorse the submission to the select committee on the local Māori awards and constituency. We've already come.
So just let me grab it back so we can keep us going. So you would have seen my comments, Susan Boddington, and those responses from central government cynical and bigoted. And then we've got Craig Gibson kicking Māori wards to touch by lunchtime. So what's coming out of that is the conversations we need to have against ourselves to articulate what's really important in our community aspects. So these are good things. The bit that Te Kautani will affirm is Māori wards are a good thing. I'm building on your stuff, see. And then there may be, if you're using a particular military metaphor, our tactic is to hold and protect. And if we think of that position in the resolution, I think we've got the currency and the provenance to lift it up and keep our communities going. If you do a diagnostic of the last election, the turnout, our whānau, see, and you all know this, is the district council, part of the crown and the enemy. So we've got goals, that trust and confidence. So that's one side of the ledger. The second bit is more called succeeded despite those constraints. He was in election because he's young and good looking. Speaks 9 languages. Yeah. Okay, smart. So the point I'm working to is the resolve of this table allows us to keep us going while holding ourselves together. So I think those two recommendations, I think there's a narrative behind this that these recommendations don't give the efficacy of this conversation we're having, so how do we build that provenance pathways? We've got communities joined up together. This is a blip in the road, it's a pothole in the road. So I think there's some 3 or 4 elements on top of it, but then what we're trying to achieve. And this is how it looks like for us. And we can build that from a Te Kautani perspective. We can build those into the 6 submissions that come out, because we want to enhance, to your quarter, we want to enhance what we're seeing in this road. Because it's a beautiful thing, to say the least. Okay, so there's 2.
So it's not.
Okay. So
When Gail's finished.
Yeah, when Jill's.
I've got one more slide and I can skip through really quickly because it's just the process going forward in what we call our representation review. So the council's meeting on the 9th of May to resolve its initial proposal, as the mayor has indicated. We then start the formal process, public notice is given on the 16th of May. There was then a 1-month submission period, so anyone in the public can make a submission on what is being proposed. That takes us through to the 17th of June. There's a hearing scheduled from any submitters that wish to be heard on the 9th and 10th of July. Then there's another council workshop to consider, do we adopt the initial proposal as the final proposal, or do we make changes? Those changes affect the submissions that they have been lodged. Then council meets again on the 8th of August to resolve its final proposal. And then again, we have to do a public notice. There's another 1-month period for people to appeal or object. And that's from the 12th of August, 12th of September. And then basically, if we receive just 1 appeal or objection, or we fall outside plus or minus 10%, then it goes all, the whole process goes off to the local government commission. That's taken out of council's hands. And if it does go down to the commission's route, then they must make a determination by the 10th of April next year. So that's just a quick skirmish through the process, the formal process going forward with the
So is that date of the public notice of final proposal issued Monday, 12th of August, correct?
Yes, because we do a public, so once the final proposal is made on the 8th of August, we have 14 days to make the public notice calling for any objections. And then that objection period is the 12th of August to the 12th of September. Yep. And as I said, it just takes one appeal or one objection and things go into the commission.
Off the letter boxes. Okay,
Sorry, just wondering with the submission hearings, who is part of the panel for those hearings?
Council.
So it comes, can it just come to Te Kuaka or does it have to go to council?
Good question. Legally, the council, I guess it's an internal matter as to who's involved and who's invited and other consultation.
Does that just blow out the timeframes? Is that what?
So
Does that just blow out the timeframes?
Yeah.
It does.
So there's certain, with that timeframe, there's certain things that have to occur by certain dates. Like you must do your initial proposal by the 31st of July. Under current legislation, you must do your final proposal by the 20th of December.
okay, thanks, Dale. We know the sort of drafting gate process. Like every process, like government, very complex, and it's easy to get wrong. Right. So just building on Tamati's thought, we would like to add value into that conversation to support.
And I can see no problem with that.
Yes. So going back to, so Kelly's gonna suggest the minutes.
Item C.
It'll be D, sorry. But Kelly, thank you.
Thanks, Dale.
Thanks, Dale.
Good to say.
An alternative resolution, please, and Tamati wants to add to it that council delegate hearings to
Te Kuaka.
Come on.
Sorry, through you, the chair, if I could, Guy, Carla, and legal, Marguerite is here. Oh, sorry, Charlie is. We just want to make sure that legally we're able, like within the legislative constraints that we work within, that the wording on F is correct. If I could request potentially an adjournment through the chair to just make sure that this, because of the time constraints, unless
We'll come back to it.
we'll come back to it.
So I think,
But I just,
yeah, let me read this. So everybody will be struggling with it.
Do we have
Motion of
someone
delegate.
from legal online?
Yeah.
And if not, why not?
we've been advised to capacity, resource constraints.
There you go. Are you able?
Oh, good timing, Rebecca. Just, you see how this is. Going through the chair if I catch Rebecca up.
Can I just get, Mr. Chair, just to check on standing orders if the deputy mayor is able to move,
Yeah.
you're looking to move an alternate, but we already have one on the table?
We haven't moved it.
Oh, cool.
No minefield view. What's looking out for mines?
I am concerned that that would be subject to legal change on the ground of determination, because you're making at A that you do not, and then in D, delegating the authority to hear submissions, which says that you've already arrived at a position in your mind. And I think that that might create some legal tensions.
So we, committees recommend things to councils all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hear what you're saying, and but the cool thing is you can say no. Council can say no.
Well, I'm not going to presume on what council would say, but I think you've been debated here this morning. Council has established a track record in this.
Yeah.
And then we have to get a significant shift for that to change, and I don't see that. But I am suggesting that there, D, whether or not you can do that is up to the lawyers, but even if you can, I think you could then be challenged by the ratepayer to take a judicial review, saying you were already predetermined. And whether that's a real risk or an imaginary risk, I'm not in an opinion, I'm just leaving them there.
That's my resolution. Is anybody happy to second that?
Delegate.
Can we change the words if we don't have a legal response yet to recommend council, that councils or these consider members of, because what are your intent is that you want to enable Te Kahua Taonui members to sit in on hearings?
Right.
So can we, because we don't know the answer, can we change the wording that council consider Te Kahua Taonui representatives be a part of the council submission hearings or whatever it is?
Yeah.
Something to that effect.
So through
Yeah.
the chair. Legal has just entered, and also Dale has just informed that the delegated authority to hear the submissions would have to be council, although like.
Not to council, the authority with council.
So.
So we've got true magnetic north over there. Let me just check from your corner, is there anything that you're concerned about for your organisation? Because there's no risk for us.
Rather than delegating to this committee, which we can't do, it's got to sit with council.
Through the chair.
That we bring Te Kahua, the intent that councillor Larkin is trying to get is to be able to, because what we always do is come to Te Kahua Taonui, come to our tenancy partners after the fact we've made a decision, have them a part of the process as well, by bringing them over to be a part of our hearing submissions, which we've done in the past reports.
Through the chair, either way, the recommendation that this committee decides to make will then form part of a staff report to council. And if in the context of that, the recommendation needs to be slight, or the implementation of that recommendation needs to be slightly rejigged, that will obviously form part of the information that's provided as part of the staff report. But if you wanted to adjust the recommendation at this stage, I guess it would be less around delegate to Te Kuaka the ability to be part of the hearings committee, and it would be more in the vein of recommend to council that in advance of hearing submissions that the matter is shared with Te Kuaka.
Are you happy to read D, and do you think that that is safe, D? Well, not safe, but
I'm afraid that off the top of my head, I can't give an opinion on that, because I would need to look at clause 32 of schedule, I think it's 7 of the Local Government Act, around the issues that can and cannot be delegated. It's not immediately obvious to me that that's not something that can't be delegated, but I know there are certain things that must sit with council for decision-making purposes, and one of them may be around hearings and also representation reviews. So I'm afraid that I would need to look at it, be able to look at it in a little bit more detail before I can give you an answer. But ultimately,
it's got to come to council.
Whatever recommended, what's recommended here.
So it's all got to
It's
get
not
through.
a decision by council.
So I think we just move on.
Yeah.
So it's.
Yeah, make a
Okay.
recommendation and have an information report and tidy it
I
up.
feel so much courage in the room that I'm about to bottle it, okay?
against the recommendations and it's not, they don't support the conversation. But I think including D runs the risk of somebody taking
Order,
action.
Chair, it hasn't been moved and seconded yet. Can I get a second for it?
I thought it had been seconded by the chief.
Okay,
I'm
so,
moving it.
so Kelly's moved amended recommendation to go to council. Have I got a seconder?
Aye.
We can have a third too.
Oh, sorry, was it about, okay.
So going to the vote, all in favour?
Speak against it.
Oh,
I get to speak first though. Thank you. Understanding orders.
this is a woman thing.
No.
I'm checking, sorry. I'm allowed to go there because I know nothing about it.
Kia ora.
I'm not the lead for this.
Thank you. So in the alternative resolution that I put, I've included the wording that Peter came up with. You know, he raised a point about continuation versus enhancement. So I've added that in there. And after listening to the kōrero around the table about where this committee is sitting on its position with the impending legislation that's going to come through, I thought I'd try to help the timelines by putting in here that we do not, you know, recommending to council to not disestablish Ngātai o Tokiro Māori ward. And I don't think that that's a bad thing. Can you put it up on the screen? I think that it is just sending a message up to council level and stating a strong position. And I support Te Kaho Taonui being part of the hearing process. And we have had that at committee levels before, like in the last quinquennium for bylaws, we had committee heard the hearings on bylaws. So hopefully we find that there is a easy way for that to occur. So yeah, I'm putting that recommendation and thank you, Tamati, for seconding. Oh, Peter, you get to speak to it.
Oh. Kia ora, Mr. Chairman. I just appreciate the discussion and the debate around the table. Particularly the comments made by Councillor McMillan. And given his experience over many years of council and seeing what can be achieved with enhancing what we already have. I am listening carefully at the same time to Councillor Court. And I'm looking forward to her comments.
Thank you. I'm going to speak solely in opposition to condition D. And my concern is, if you had listened to my colleagues in this room, I think that there is support to continue with Māori wards. However, I think that we run the risk of an interest group or a ratepayer group or an individual ratepayer seeking a judicial challenge of the decision-making process if it's not seen to be unbiased. So while we have this committee saying that they do not wish to see the disestablishment of Māori wards, they support one district-wide ward, and they feel so strongly about that they're going to make a submission on that. So if they sit down then as judge, jury and executioner in a democratic public submission, yes, and they arrive at the decision to continue with the status quo, that decision could be challenged. I'm not saying it would be, I'm saying it could be. And that is the risk. And that's what worries me. That's the only thing that worries me.
Then it's apparently, because I haven't read the procedures manual, then this is open to the floor. Hilda?
I can unhappy. Mōhio, kei roto o te heku he hearings commissioner that are non-councillors. To be part of that, that could be part of that representation review and directly involved with Te Kahu o Taonui. You know, and kei au e tahi oira ingoa. But atu tira, yeah.
Thanks, Hilda. Babe, you've put something on the chat. You want to speak to that?
Kia ora, Harry. Ahau, ore kau au tino maramana ki ngā kōrero I te mea tuatahu, I te mea wāku nei whakaroa e ahua he ana ki te haka-huri-huri I ngā kōrero. So I think he kōrero. What's that called again, Moko? When I got a substantive or something to change the motion. Because ke au nei, e kōrero ana tātou I ngā, e mahi ana tātou I ngā kōrero a rātou. Taku hia, kia huri hia ngā kōrero mō tātou ake. Pēnei te disestablish pangatu te rā kupu ki te taha, tāku nei he tautoko haere tonu. Te tua whā.
So like Kapa, we need to have, well, this committee would want to use that specific wording because that's the wording we can expect in the legislation. And so establish or we go to a poll. So what we want to say is that we do not disestablish.
I think he was just editing D, so change your point to endorse.
So
I don't think you need a foreshadowed amendment because I think that.
Oh, okay. That's the one. 4 shadow, 5 shadow, some shadow.
Aye, so councillor Kapa has pulled up the fact that Te Kuaka can't appoint, but we are actually recommending to council anyway. So I think we leave it as a point.
Okay,
Yeah.
Kapa.
Okay, so we're going to, just one thing I think Moko's degree was more degree. Your take. Okay, so let's move the motion. So Kelly move it, put the second, all in favour? Aye. Against? Okay, that's it. Abstention? Thank you. Good, everyone. Thanks for your patience.
Wow.
6-1. I think have you known the long straw in this corridor? You want to provide, there's a number of us that come into this room on the run and give context to you grabbing all the submissions together, which I read them. I know.
Makariri atu maua, tēnei pito o te tempu.
Oh.
I don't know how others are feeling, guys.
Tēnei te pamahana, kia whainga whakao.
Bumped it up a couple of degrees.
Kare tō ngā koe pite, mahana tōna.
Wasn't our corridor, was it?
Me mau pōtai koe pita.
Saying that in down there is cold, but the same saying that they're warm. And it's her more arrogance. Joke.
No, e kōrero aroha ki kakuku kia.
Okay, Annie, can you just give us a thumbnail of this so the committee can decision there? reflects the recommendation.
So we're on paper 6.1 and MOU info report. It is just an info report. As you may know, we have been on road shows around to different hapu and iwi to discuss re-establishing our relationships of council and hapu and iwi. And this report outlines who we've been to and some of the key things that we've taken from those hui. We're also highlighting our next steps, which we are also underway to bring up around tabling a draft MOU and a draft MOU program for consideration by hapu and iwi. I just want to note on page 29 there is a Kuaka Ariki Trust. We also need to meet with that isn't listed in there.
Trust.
Right. And we still need to. We still need to meet face to face with the media.
Okay, questions? Toa?
Yeah, when was it last week? Tino no whangaro will meet with Lani last week and your team, thanks so much for taking the time. Yeah. So the way I understand it, we're going to strip it out and have one single templated MOU front end. The appendices will identify what priorities each of the have there. Your team, sorry, what's your team, Lani? Te Hono is the relationship management interface with the hapu and the iwi. There is another part here that, and probably the next item on the agenda, that tells me whether or not this will actually bite at the operational level within council. Because I know all your staff, Guy, busy, I'll look at this and go, what's the add? So is it an add-on, which then the hoha factor comes into it? Or is it something that's a lot more substantive? Because part of this obviously is around the bigger part around how we raise trust amongst our people around council. Second part of this is around whether or not we can actually, whether or not this council can make good on some of that, I guess, expectations that may come through this MOU process. So I always wonder whether or not we're being really provocative going out there to sign up MOUs and look at prioritization when really in the back end of it, we know operationally a lot of this stuff maybe will not happen. Our farmers spend a lot of time, effort and resource trying to make good on these things, only to be told 6 months from now, oh, sorry, we've moved on, we can't help you. So it's the same sort of cycle. So I'm wondering what's different about this approach, which is what I put to you say last week around it. And so the response from iwi is rather than having a suite of priorities, the realistic thing is to pick a couple that might be within the capacity of the council to actually do something about. Anyway, I'm just trying to temper the expectations at home as we start to talk about and share this impact of the MOU.
Okay, Guy.
Yes, thank you, Joel. You're right to question this program. I would say that the main focus is MOU is actually to make the rubber hit the road. I'm not that fussed about signing MOUs. We've had MOUs in the past. There was a significant round of negotiations and signatures done between 2016, 2019. A number of those MOUs have expired with not much going on. So the primary focus here is to engage, to have substantive discussions and agree work plans, and also address particular issues as and when they come up in these meetings. And certainly Te Hono have the mandate to do that, and that's our intention. Just harking back to the last agenda point where I said, you know, we're tasked with facilitating a fair and representative election. I actually think that should be added to this program for Te Hono, and that would be around educating the electorate and empowering people to encouraging vote. So I think there's many work streams that we will be initiating through this process, and I'm confident that Lani and her team will be mandated and empowered to make things happen. That's that.
Yeah, my comments, Mr. Chairman, are similar to Tor's comments. A delegation of Ngāti Hine came to the chambers maybe 2 months ago now as part of the hui that are articulated in this report. We highlighted that the MOU with Ngāti Hine was signed at the Matawaia Marae, I think it was 2015, by then Mayor John Carter, Deputy Mayor Tony McInnes, and the acting CEO, who was Colin Dale. Because of that signing in a place, none other than Matawaia Marae, Ngāti Hine holds that relationship document very highly. And I'm loath to see a relationship document that was endorsed by those kaumātua kuia who were at Matawaia at that time. Suffice to say that despite a very strong mayor through John Carter pushing for priorities in a work plan to be put in place, nothing ever happened. And it was revealed, the council endorsed it. It went through the council processes, so it was endorsed by council. But one of the managers from the Far North District Councils in the meetings that started talking about the action part said, council may have endorsed this relationship document, but council has never been geared up to give effect to the relationship, and hence why nothing has been done. Now, I hear Guy clearly talking about Te Hono. So my point being is that whoever has relationships signed off really needs a council that is geared up to give effect to the relationship, and to, if there's only one priority, so be it, or one action that comes out of it, less is more. So,
with the MOUs, how effective have they been as of late for some with the iwi or hapu who have had the hui and council processes? It's just a whātai because those who have been in communications with Te Runanga Whaingaroa, more specifically a resource consent that has not been answered to. How do the MOUs give effect to feedback from hapu and iwi delegations when it comes to processes such as the resource consenting processes? And I'm talking about the 20 days notice or the 5-day turnaround for those iwi or hapu to give feedback on the resource consent application.
The questions directed to whom?
To staff.
I think that's fine. Catch that for.
I'll just say that the net is capturing that resource consenting process. I understand all resource consents are being passed through to Hono. I think this is there's an operational challenge there to respond and to figure out the appropriate level of responses given the volume of consents that are going to it. So I think that's a case of operationally we need to find the right level of attention. Those resource consent applications. Obviously, as council, we are constrained by legal obligations in terms of turning consents around and statutory timeframes, etc. So there is a challenge there, but I think we've tackled that and the process is underway.
Just speak to, I understand about the legal processes with the RMA, etc. But if we're talking about the MOUs and following on from this, so we've got Te Paiwata, our FN 2100, our Section 32 report. We need to make sure that staff are giving effect to that too, when we are going through staff processes and we're talking about the legalities of that and what we have on our side to coincide with the money that we deliver within our hapui iwi te taitokero.
I acknowledge and understand the legislative constraints and responsibilities, duties that council are under with regard to processing resource consents, for example. Certainly, your hapui very willing, able to work with the council around processes such that they don't become. But I acknowledge across the country, not just this council, that that can be an issue. Well, we don't want to be the issue. We want to work with you such that we are adding, excuse me, we're adding value to your decision making, not being seen by others as dragging attention.
Harry, should we be talking about a procurement agreement rather than an MOU?
That was one item that was raised by Te Rena Whanau as a potential outcome, which would be around the procurement process and policies within the council in terms of thinking Te Māori subbies and they get access to those opportunities.
In that agreement, everyone gets a chance. You know, the council might have 3 preferred providers. Whatever the service is required. So, you know, we're under the MOU, we might be, as Māori, perceived to be advantaged.
We have a procurement process, which we need to take a look at perhaps.
Once again, I think this is just part of our processes and part of taking on board the this council's wishes. But in terms of procurements, we are trying to be making a special effort to be far more inclusive. As we go through this, we've just been through a couple of large procurement processes. I think there was broad consultation.
There was some note about setting some targets potentially or recommending. Particularly if you think about the umbrella social procurement, it could potentially be a solution.
Let us ask Lani, you ask, clearly you've got delegated authority both to lead and activate. So what are the elements of activation from your role that speaks to Toa and Peter's pain? Is we're gonna put it all in a cup of tea, and then your MIA. So any thoughts of what?
Yeah, so internally staff have started the discussion around reviewing the social procurement strategy that we have. I just want to note also that on Te Kuaka's work program is a Māori economic development strategy of some sort. So we still need to show what that looks like Te Kuaka. But internally staff are having conversations around how we potentially enhance our Māori aspects of our procurement strategies.
I mean, just through you again, Harry, the point that I'm wanting to make here is number one, MOUs create expectations in our community that we have to manage. Te Hono becomes a meat in the sandwich because they can't get cut through further within the organisation, maybe because the systems don't allow that, and I'm very familiar with that. So what we're wanting to do is just be a bit more realistic about we think the outcomes are likely to be in terms of striking it. That's all.
Okay, so the simple way to deal with is to receive your report. And so well done. But my sense is there's more, and what that looks like requires us having quite a broad conversation, because the asymmetry would be we require you to give us the resources to respond to you, or how do we create that bridge, that hormone that allows us to give back to spirit of this memorandum of understanding. So I'm just looking for what that next step looks like, and as a committee, how do we elevate that? And if it's a one cope up the play to understand the machination, so be it. But my sense is, and part of that one play machinations is a level over this, in my view. So if I would all be looking for that one play elevation, it's the same as what it is looking for, what other iwi are looking for. Is it as simple as that?
Yeah, what we need is this to be action over between now and the next week, so that we understand from the questions we proposed what the process will be, whether it's MOU, whether it's procurement, what it will be, so we can be engaged in a process that's not a contradiction, as well as being not being very proactive in what we feed back to our communities.
I think here nei te tautoko te ia o te kōrero, he pai te haere ki ngā hui e me kōrero mō ngā whakaitanga i maingani te kaunihera me iwi a hapu. Engari me haere ngātahi, ngā mahi a māngai me ngā mahi a muri. So I'd like to support the motion, move the motion, and I think that what Te Kahu o Taunui are saying is it's not just about let's have a friendly handshake, because Māori have had good relationships and good handshakes with so many former governments, former leaders, former councils. But at the end of the day, we can all have that warm, fuzzy feeling. But if they don't feel like, you know, one part is being acknowledged, but behind the scenes, the operations are a little bit different. And so that's when those two pathways need to sort of gel together. So I don't know what those are, but I think what Peter said is really give effect to the relationship. So Māku tērā e mōtini, and to thank and Kamati, hei tautoko. Thank you, Lani, for your report and all the good work, but even myself, I feel whakamā sometimes. E pai te haere ki ngā hui and promise the world. For me, mōhio a tātou, it's a bit like how everyone loved Jacinda. Māori didn't generally love Jacinda. And then, you know, then you got to form a new relationship with the new guys, and it's like the relationship lasts as long as the stardust is there. So, wina no ngā mihi ki o koutou whakaro a wanga, and there's a hope that we can do things better, which obviously comes back to procedures and operations, and that's in your corner, Guy. I mean,
You guys.
seconded? Or any?
There's one more part-time before we go to the function to say.
Oh, it's not really a question. I totally for what Hilda just said, you know, the ball is in your corner, Guy. But I just wanted to acknowledge how many SLT are in the room today. Lani, how big, you know, your team is compared to when I first came onto council 6 years ago. There's actually team, you know, a scrum behind you to help us take some of these balls, take the ball across to the goal line to achieve some of the take that our iwi and hapu are bringing to us in these kōrero when we're sitting down. And I just want to acknowledge Guy as well for, you know, having the forethought and, you know, bringing everybody along on this journey. But we've also, I just want to give everybody around the table some peace of mind. Whilst the MOUs aren't part of Guy's KPIs, the Māori framework Te Pai o Uta is embodied into that, and they are part of his KPIs. So we, as your elected members, are holding him to account, and therefore the organisation. But yeah, I just needed to add that. Kia ora.
So are we brave enough to add going to dangerous territory, all cases going on?
You go.
Don't go there.
Sorry. Good now.
So what I did hear between Guy and Arnie is a commitment to find one level of execution of that relationship, that hononga. I would be encouraging us to put that in the recommendation.
Create the hononga.
Or to hono and support from and in conjunction with Kiwi, find one execution opportunity to work through. Is that too simplistic? I'm looking at you guys. Execution.
Yeah, I was thinking you there, they got Excalibur to go with that. or-
Yeah, Excalibur. Pull that sword out. I don't want to scare the horses. I certainly don't want us to leave this road with differing expectations.
I'm fine with that. I think there's several things in execution as we speak, so.
Yeah.
I like those.
Okay.
We use a meaningful way.
So Peter, you okay with that addition?
John, check it up on the screen. Sorry.
Okay, I'm fine with
Yeah.
But probably my question is, if they're being brought in to say, describe it as an omnibus relationship, where does that leave the Kuaka as the relationship? I would have thought that's where the relationship is.
I think they're separate because Te Kuaka has a body of work to do on behalf of everyone, but your relationship agreements are for your hapu o iwi.
I understand that, but isn't Te Kuaka representing everyone? And will have an action, so why are you having another layer?
Good question.
In terms of why having MOUs in the first place.
Hey, why have MOUs in the first place?
Because of the historic, what held strongly some of our iwi and hapu have held on to them. Like take the Matawaka and Matua Kuia, for example, that you shared with us. The idea was to have this charter, one way of dealing with everybody, taking in everything. But some hapu don't want to let go of the MOU.
Yeah, and I was quite happy to take a flexible approach on that, I actually initially suggested that we don't spend a lot of time negotiating individual MOUs and that we just publish a charter of our undertakings, which I think we should still do, but we're happy to do MOUs as well. So I seem to be losing my voice.
Just the other point to this is that it's good to pay for those in the circle of Te Kuaka, but not those that aren't in the circle, where you would still need to go ahead and type of relationship with another like that.
Okay. And I don't think that it excludes that opportunity, does it? That
doesn't exclude that.
Doesn't.
That's helpful, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Okay, so I've heard that operations, because we're going down to the execution bit now. Operations guy is okay with it, that articulation of the opportunity. So, basis, could we have a move in a second?
Can I just clarify that Te Hono is the internal tool that allows the execution of the movements between the Te Kuaka and the thing, because I understand the points that Peter has brought up, and I felt that that was more internal Te Hono. But the primary relationship is Te Kuaka and council. But that Te Hono is our internal mechanisms, because they must work across council with all the service leaders.
Okay, Babe, you okay to move that motion?
Yeah, the motion is fine. The motion is fine, but I'm not sure about the note below that, because I see that as something different, something internal for us.
Which is stuff dedicated internally. In addition to Tiwana. So
can I encourage us to find high-level ways to keep us joined up, understanding there'll be some potholes in the road, so perfection won't get us there.
Yeah.
The spirit of the order, well,
Nice.
yeah. Yeah.
Hi, Tina.
So, Babe, with that addition, you still okay to move it?
I'm just finding reasons to say yes.
Okay, so I think while we're waiting for you to say yes, we've already got a mover here with Hilda and then Kelly, so. But I'm moving a second, you need, we will put it all around the.
Okay.
Okay, all in favour of moving the motion? Against? Abstain? Thanks. Well done, everybody. If I have lollipops, you're all getting. Okay, 6.2 is after this, and this is not a problem to get through. Will be lunch. Okay. 6.2, 31 to 53. Lani, sorry to hold you up.
No worries. So just as a reminder, the Te Māori framework was adopted last year, September, a little bit earlier at Te Kuaka, and this is an info report, so update on how we've gone since the last Te Kuaka. So Te Hono will provide a bi-monthly update report every Te Kuaka on our progress. Quite a lot has happened. We've undertaken a full branding refresh of Te Pauta. There's a number of attachments there, and an internal framework. It is for our staff and to ensure our staff have something to work towards. An external framework, which is taken from a number of documents that have already been approved through council, namely the district plan, 2100, we have approved memorandums of understandings, a number of the documents there, and then we've got an organisational capability framework as well. This presentation has gone to a number of staff internally, mainly SRT and our people leaders last week, and was received well. Internally, we've got a lot of work to do. So there's a huge program that Te Hono are putting in place to ensure our staff are on board with achieving towards Te Pauta under the 3 goals. And that will be a long journey for us. There's a number of steps behind it in terms of professional stuff.
internal training. That will begin. It's actually on the 30th of this month, so we will continue with internal te reo training. And we're just reshaping what that looks like for July onwards. But for your info, this also sits on the Te Kuaka work program. So we are needing to provide updates at every Te Kuaka meeting. I think that's it. It's quite extensive, and we're happy to workshop the frameworks as well at some point if we requested to. I just want to acknowledge Jude and my team for her amazing work on this framework and his two for today. Hilda.
Lani, thanks for leading that piece of work for us. So any questions for Lani?
Just an acknowledgement, Lani, for you and your team. This is a really good piece of work, speaking from an organisation whose day job is still trying to figure this stuff out. So just really want to acknowledge looking forward in this one, particularly what it's promoting in terms of capability development material for all the whaimahi. So just a team. Can I just ask, is there any part of this that actually links towards the way performance is measured from a PCW or from an HR perspective with the staff cost? Is it linked towards that?
Yes, so we have undertaken discussions with HR to incorporate the Kuaka into our KSFs, which are like our key success factors for staff.
Kia ora, Lani, thank you for that. I see that the attachment of the Te Paiuta framework, that's an updated version from the one that we initially accepted to implement last year. So just acknowledging that. I can't remember what I did yesterday. I can't remember if we've actually had Te Hono or anyone deliver this new artwork or framework or anything else to Te Kuaka. So maybe we could, or is that in the workshop coming up?
It can be in a workshop.
Okay, then kapai. If we can just add that too, because I know I think that I might be making things up. When we did carry the motion for the implementation of Te Paiuta, we did give powers to the CE to make amendments around wording, etc. So my assumption is that this is a part of that. And if you don't mind, Mr. Chair, I've got a list of partai. So if I
do your notes,
those were given by my colleagues to my right. But I'm just comparing our Te Kuaka meeting from the 22nd of February and the outline of dates on page, what's this page? Page 20, page 21 of that agenda and page 33 of this agenda. And so just to read on page 21 of that agenda in March 2024, which is what I questioned, was the alignment of external measurement outcomes for work programs in council, the like LTP annual plan. Now, although that was mentioned in the purpose of the report around the Te Paiuta external measurements outcomes framework, that was not added to the February agenda item. But I do see that it's been added to, and I might be wrong on this, Lani, is that what has now been added in the March 2024 schedule, the internal external organisations capability measurements completed, blah, 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 blah. Is that?
It is page 43.
Okay, then, so just confirming that. So that has now been updated. And so looking at that, my partai during that February meeting was, so the alignment of Te Paiuta would be implemented within all our work streams and through all our teams within council processes by the end of March 2024. We are now in April. Can you confirm, or can any of SLTs confirm that Te Paiuta has been implemented within the work programs?
Ka hore, that's not correct. So the program that we're going through with staff is now, and it has been happening for a number of weeks. So we have gone to SLT, we have gone to people leaders with requests to provide us with 3 or more work programs that can fulfill a Te Paiuta work program for all of council. So each team within council need to provide 3 work programs, and that will be effective 1st of July onwards.
1st of July, so you're talking about the purple area down the bottom there?
Yes.
So, and then when you're talking about the implementation of the, what was it, 2 or 3?
Yeah, that's an example. Those are examples of what.
Page 44. Okay, then. Well, if you're referring to that, and I can see that some examples are listed here. What happens when those teams, I'm looking at, I'll look at Roger because Roger's a good guy. But what happens when, say, planning and policy, they reach the pinnacle of te reo and tikanga course within their team? Does it carry on, or do they replace it with another goal, or does it remain there and they add another goal within their money?
The request is for there to be 3 minimum on the work program. So if you achieve 2 in your first year, you need to replace them with 2 more. But also, we're also telling staff to give us goals that will go beyond the year, if not more, so that we're not constantly having to change our work programs and socialise those across the entire council. So more than a month would be great.
I guess what I'm trying to get at is that if te reo and tikanga course is there for now, that is not okay. So we'll just put that in there, and hopefully nobody comes back to us, you know, in 10 years or something, or we'll just leave it there for 10 years and hopefully nobody looks back at us. So I guess there's timeframes around that. And last question, I promise. What capacity does Te Hono have to be able to deliver this within all the teams? Because if I'm thinking about Jason Wilmington was one of our SLTs, and she is head of, or she looks after democracy services, health and safety, stakeholder relationships, and Te Hono. What capacity does Te Hono have to be able to deliver to those teams, plus Emma's teams, plus Roger's teams, plus Ruben's teams, plus Kevin's team, and the timeline for it? Because Te Hono, to my knowledge, around in our communities, engagement with resource consenting, and attending public hui on behalf of the council to ensure that we are following right processes when it comes to tikanga Māori. So I guess what does Te Hono currently have capacity, or are there other teams that are willing to assist Te Hono with the implementation of Te Paiuta within the whole of council and our external contractors, which is what we previously mentioned and quite a few of our.
A little bit of that. So yeah, it's a very courageous program to roll out across council. And so Te Hono could we fulfill all the requirements to roll out this program. The level at which we roll it out though is, that would be helpful if we had you know, more capacity to do that. But in saying so, we're going to lean on other team members from across council to help us in rolling this out. They will be our champions for Te Paiuta. We're not expecting one staff member in Te Hono to have 400 individual conversations. We're really leaning in on our people leaders too, to ensure that they roll this out through their teams, and then Te Wanoa there to support them with that and not to do the work for them. So it is a lot. It's really ambitious, and need to work with what we've got really. And saying that though, we are relying heavily on our colleagues to assist us as well.
Thank you, Lani. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
What's that?
Mr. Chairman, if we're talking about the recommendation on page 31, I'm happy to move it. And it is very ambitious because we're only, it's an update, we're receiving the update in the supporting document, so that's why I'm willing to move it. It is ambitious. I think the outcomes remain great. I still can't get over that the executive summary speaks to he whakaputanga and te tiriti o Waitangi. But then when you come to page 47, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, well, it's column 3 goes down the last row and it says applies the tiriti principles, which is an oxymoron in itself. So some of it is not congruent with what it's trying to achieve. In the scheme of things, I'm still willing to move it because these things are all.
No further, if there are no further questions, we'll go to pitch a moving recommendation and for seconding. You're around. All in favour? Again. Thanks, Lani.
Yeah.
I think just to emphasise Tamate's point, if you run out of time, we here yell out and we'll find ways to keep you going. But like Peter said, it's courageous work. So cultural change in an organisation is significantly. So everybody up for the challenge, including Guy. Well done, everybody. Okay, so. So we're going to go to lunch now. Before we go to lunch, we just need to. No, we won't. We're going to chunk it differently. Because just solicitor. Item 7.1. 7.2 won't be joining us till 2 o'clock. So going to lunch. So someone could please see the place.
See the kaiwai, you basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got it.
I was making here.
Do that.
It's been recorded.
Okay.
Back at what?
It's 12:35, back at 1. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for your service.
Nobody can read my
You're going to go for the photos. Get away.
Sure that everything's.
Oh, kill him.
Thank you.
I'm just conscious that we've probably got a stack of stuff to go through. If we can think about the efficiency of moving through the well-being articulate, that'd be really oversight, whatever. So could we start with us? You're ready, eh?
I'm happy to wait if you need to.
No, Dolly, let's go with you. You're in the ready mode, so leave us out on 6.3.
Ready to move it, by the way, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, perfect.
Tēnā koutou katoa, e atu rauranga tirama in anticipation of the report being read already. I'll take it as read to save you all some time. This report serves as a mechanism to bring back to the table the updates that have on subject matter that has come across the table here at Te Kuaka, either via a report or via our Māori ward councillors or the mayor, in fact. So there are three items in this report that have come across Te Kuaka's table at some stage that we are providing updates for. We are happy to have Tanya Steen in the room to speak to the One Wharawai and Te Kawatri update, as well as the Kuitaya Airport aerodrome update. And we have both Scott May and Marguerite Benstra here to speak on One Wharo on the Whenua Māori rates act.
Going to 6.3, that those two, that Taki talked about us.
So that's the PX one is a separate.
Sorry.
So my job here is to introduce those three items, and then if you have any questions or concerns or matters to be raised, we've got people here to speak to those items. Start here to speak.
Questions for the report?
If you could state which item that is we're looking at. Is it
Whenua Māori Amendment
Whenua Māori Amendment Act?
So following your workshop and so forth, what, if anything, was concluded regarding the reason for what is described in here as bullet point number 1, this $10 million rate debt? I mean, that's not a word that I would use, but I understand what context of is for you. So the question again is, as a result of the workshop and other thinking, what, if anything, can determine as to the clear problem and the reason why it exists at that level?
So I'm going to invite my colleagues to come and speak to those two, that question. Both Scott and
All right, kia ora katoa. To the chair, in answer to your question, Sam. I'll just give an update on the initial workshop, which I took about there. What was clear was we didn't have any data within the organisation around invisibility over the problem. And the other thing that came to light was there's the Whenua Rating Act, which is a specific act. In the mix there was discussions around policies and the lack of data to back that up. So really this sat with us operationally. The second workshop, in that time in between, we were able to collate some data, which gave us visibility over how big an issue the rates not being paid, rates into admission, and gave us the opportunity to dive deeper into that data. What was also clear for me was that we needed to pull various operational teams together. So very much an operational challenge is that all of these things cross over. So we've got groups that need to be out there in the community. So there's a community stream that was agreed upon. The second piece was a policy stream, which was led by Roger's team, strategy and policy. Then there's a data stream, so we need to interrogate and actually get better at data so that we can manage and work through operationally with what we've got. And then there's the finance stream. The other thing that came to light in this conversation was actually there's an operational lens for financial prudence that we need to be taken care of. And so it's not just a decision about doing a mass write-off, it's actually about managing our internal finance program, ensuring that all of those levers that are available to us are all executed in conjunction with each other, and then the teams that need to work together are collaborating over. So the output of the second workshop, which wasn't noted at the time of putting this update in the report, was that a working group, probably meeting on a weekly basis, across the operational teams will get together to start moving this forward. To come back to your question, one of the things that's clear there is we don't know the answer to that problem. And that community stream will need to make sure that we engage and that we get a better understanding of that, and then we refine our policies and what we do internally to accommodate moving forward in that space.
Only one more question, Eric. You go. Okay, one more question from me, I promise. Bullet point 2, it says risks of not writing off and writing off. Can I get some clarity on that description? Do you mean remission of rates in accordance with whatever policy you have in place? Or do you mean statute barred after, I think it's 7 years? When you say write off, are you talking about statute barred and writing it off under that's, statute limitation? Why are you talking about revision of rates under your current policies?
Kia ora, Sam. So, under the amendment, Whenua Māori Amendment Act, the CE has the ability to write off rates. That's what that's referring to. So, for us as council, we need to understand what's going to happen if we not write off $10 million in overdue unpaid.
That answers the question for me here. So can I just elaborate? The reason I ask is because for me and others who might know, the term write-off it's kind of grating. With regard in the statute limitations, there's a certain period of time. Is it 7 years when you must write off that debt?
Well, 6 years.
6 years, okay. So I get that part. But where you have a rate remission policy, and when that policy is well understood and well engaged in by landowner, this is, if I may just express a view, it's not a write-off. And sometimes we turn the write-off with regard to a group of people or an individual or whānau validly and legitimately and fairly following and applying for an application, the application of rates remission policy. The write-off just doesn't sit well with me. Just some feedback. Not asking you, just to consider it.
It is the actual text too in the legislation, unfortunately.
Yeah, but we sit around this table, don't always agree with things that are written in legislation about legislation. But thank you so much for your.
Just hold that thought around the lexicon we're using, the nomenclature we're using to deal with something that's a bit of a blancmange, and maybe created by the policies we've got in front of us without thinking. But just hold that thought. More and then policy.
Thanks, Scott. I think appreciate that verbal feedback on the shop that you guys held operationally and the fact that you're going to have a working group come together to look at this, because my understanding is that the 10 million sits on around 1,125 accounts, which could mean 1 million people, but who are benefactors of the land in question. But as the number of accounts that we're working with for this $10 million in debt does have a set number.
Yes, it does.
And so that's what Sam's point. Because I agree with what you're saying around the write-off. But what I've always come into this wanting to do is that we've got legislation that passed that allows us to give everyone a slate who otherwise wouldn't. And we want to apply that legislation across this, which is ghost money we're never going to collect, so that then we can proactively encourage whānau to come to us to say, guess what? Actually, you can apply across all of these policies we have now, so that until the point that you can finally make your whenua economically productive for housing so that you can pay rates, you're not starting on the back foot, because starting on the back foot means that you're never going to actually come forward. Council stuck in limbo, can never do anything with your land. We can't force sell it to recuperate that $10 million. We can't do anything. We're hamstrung. You're also hamstrung. This legislation came through to try and be the bridge between the two parties so that people can finally start to get ahead. So I guess what I'm asking is, what I would like to see is for my 4.5 years on council, and even though I didn't want to, I asked Mayor Carter to put me on the former Assurance, Risk and Finance Committee because I thought I'd better learn about this, even though it's something I don't even like. And would forever get these revenue recovery reports where it would just consistently say, back then it was 19 million, 23 million or whatever it was, and debt there across the accounts. The legislation changed. We actually spoke at select committee. I actually spoke at select committee around not wanting it to sit operationally as a as something the CE would be required to do. And at select committee, I remember saying, what I don't want you to do is give us the power, but then leave us at a governance level weak. And then just, it depends whether you've got a great CEO or not, or great staff around you who can work within the parameters of the flexibility that the legislation gives. And the legislation gives a lot of flexibility around what we actually can do. So it's great to hear you've got an operational working group to look at these 11 or 1,200 accounts so that we can start to be a little bit more proactive. What isn't helpful in all of this is the notions that this money is in any way, shape or form going to be recoverable by this council. It's not. We budget for it, but then we're going to have to debt fund that gap that we get because that money's never going to come in. So we want to stop playing illusions, or this what I want is I don't want this organisation to stop playing with ghost money or budgeting for money that's going to come in that's never going to come in, never can come in. Because if I look at our whenua block in Mitimiti as an example, and I use my own, so yeah, we've got one side of our land block that we've got whānau living on and are contributing rates to it, but the other whole side of it is just, there's no fences, there's cows running around from, you ask who owns the cow, people will say no one. You ask who wants to, I want to buy a cow, and everyone says they own it. Like it's a real mess, and I know that's the same for everyone else, like for all these other land blocks that we've got. So what I would hope from this and from this working group is that we're working at pace. We don't need to review all of our policies. We've got sound policies in place. We don't need to, I'm not worried for this specific one. I'm not worried about everything else we've got going on that we try and mix the mess here with. All I want to see is how we in this working group are going to proactively utilise the incredible flexibility in the Rating of Māori Amendment Act to see that number cleared. We don't have to talk about write-offs anymore, Matu Sam, but then we can proactively go out through Te Kawatanui to whānau to say, here are all of the policies we do have that you can use from now on to get yourself ahead. Does that make sense? But I'd want to see those updates, whether it be through, I don't want to see a revenue recovery report coming to our Te Miro committee that just continually says, here's how much debt we've got, here's how much debt we've got, here's how much debt we've got. I want to see like proactive reform coming through saying the working group across the 1,125 accounts, we've managed to, within this last calendar month, look at 2. And of those 2, we're going to recommend to the CE to write off X amount, or we're not, and these are the reasons why. Does that make sense? So real concise, clear and consistent and concise reporting coming back to us around those accounts so that we can follow the journey of the why or why not. And then you also don't have to be on the hot seat every time to try and articulate conversations that you're having at an operational level, because we can see it all in data coming to us.
Wallace, and then
Yeah, just a bit of clarity on the 6 years, so, and the current number of accounts captured we're talking about. So they're all under 6 years of age, just to clarify. They would?
At this moment, yes.
Yeah, everything beyond that's been written on.
Yes.
Okay, and with the outstanding ones, our issue with it is there are small pockets of Finland, which is landlocked, and it also, there are no services to connect to those Finland as well. And in the process of elimination, I would presume that they would disappear off the councils.
If I can just add to both replies, so some actions that have already come out of the initial workshop and the second one was one, creating that data so we understand. Two was this GIS mapping in progress. The third piece was the rating team looked at the descriptions around unused land and some of this landlocked stuff so that we're in a better position that we're rating appropriately moving forward, but also when we go through and assess the accounts that are there, we can go, actually, that is unused land, why we're even approaching this like this. So we're being very proactive and trying to be aggressive about doing that. In relation to the write-offs, we've agreed that because we've changed those terms, we can actually start to batch write-off, and which is pretty much what you were saying, more moving forward. They're being evaluated by council and managed by our operational team and then approved by the CEO.
What about the valuation across land that's not being used but has resource on, like aggregate? How is aggregate then interpreted in the?
So there is a clear definition of, that our team have come up with on unused land. And so it's not taking into account wandering stock fences also. So our team have to actually do quite a bit of GIS, looking at our whenua box through GIS to understand, does that meet the requirements of our unused land description? We've extended it too. So previously wandering stock, if caught on camera, was rated. So yeah, our team have actually changed that now and put it onto the application forms for whānau to either voluntarily tell us that or for us to go and do our homework.
And similarly with undeveloped land that suddenly changes to development stage, then that process would follow that as well.
And then our remissions policy is available for land that is in development to give staggered rating percentages until it is fully developed. We can fully contribute to the rate.
We do rely on whānau to come in and tell us that though, otherwise it is a matter of simply one or two staff members in council manually looking at all of our accounts to figure that out.
Often when land is being developed, it's for whatever purpose, it takes time for income streams to kick in, and that time frame is usually 5 to 7 years. If our people are developing it and they don't have somebody else as JV paying a lease fee or something. So
our policy allows for a 7-year sliding scale under economic development.
I think all the things you've raised, we tabled in the workshop and talked through and agreed that we need to do better operationally to serve our communities here. So it's all in the mix for this working group to tackle and move forward on.
So we stop, like administratively, we're still rating for all these accounts.
we're still adding penalty fees onto all of these accounts. We could stop having to do all of that.
That was going to be my question, around my. Is there somebody?
No, you keep going.
Okay.
Come back.
I suppose, to me, why are they even being rated? Why are they even being called up as owing when they should be just classified as non-rateable lands, like churches, like schools, like conservation land, like others? Do we go and get a figure about how much they could potentially pay? And so it bothers me that even the figure $10 million, because then there's another narrative going out in the community. There go those Māori again trying to get freebies, or there they are, et cetera, So I'm asking, you know, all the categories like unused lands, the ones that have been put aside for conservation, public use, and all the other categories that they are these inside that $10 million? They're not just classified, you know, like I just see that as an operational thing. We had an act, and it's an operational thing that these lands are considered non-rateable. So why are they even on our list, and why are we asking to collect monies off them? Because I think that 10 million would be less, wouldn't even be that figure. Am I right or am I wrong?
No, you're correct.
Great.
Through the chair, my name is Marguerite Beenstra. So within that 10 million, there are some that could and more than likely again will be unused, but we are not aware of that yet. So when the Act came in 2021, we did some research looking through the database to identify which land potentially is landlocked, because you can see that which land is potentially completely overgrown. There's nothing happening there. So we, at that stage, set those as unused in our system. The arrears were taken off the account and they were no longer being rated going forward. So they're already off outside of that 10 million. However, there were a number of accounts, and I can't remember the exact amount, but I think we identified around and about 100 where we weren't 100% sure. And so a letter was sent to the landowners telling them that we have potentially identified their land as being unused. However, we needed confirmation from them. Could they please get back to us? And I think there was a few of them that we heard back from, but a large number we did not. And so that where it effectively has stalled since then. So the rest, so that is all of that. We are already applying the pieces around the other rating relief that's sitting within the Whenua Māori Amendment Act. So that's outside of our own policies. Those are the relief sat within the Act. So that's where you've got one large block or large blocks of land being rated as one. So we're already doing that. Or where land is being rated separately, whereby various owners of different parts of blocks within that land can then apply for rate rebate, because that's what that part was for. So we're already doing that. However, all of that again is upon application. So it's really very key that we need to get more knowledge out there of what rating relief options are within the Act available to the owners of Māori freehold land blocks. The rating of it, whatever the rating is, the Rating Act, we have to apply rates. It's not a case that we can't sort of decide as such to say we're not applying rates. We can apply rates and then write it off, if that makes any sense. But the rates have to be applied first to then be removed potentially afterwards. Does that make any sense?
Of course it does.
Just dug a hole deeper, but it's fine. Thank you for that, Margaret. It did.
Kia ora, Margaret. So it's under the Rating Act, and then the Whenua Māori Amendment Act that we're able to, buy the unused. I get that. I've calculated that it's 1.6 to 2 million a year of ghost money that we budgeting. And that's probably the key thing for me. We're constantly setting our LTP and our annual plan to a figure that includes this ghost money. So then later on, 3 to 6 years down the road, we then go and put that remissions on the greater everybody else, including Māori owners, because that remission that we applied, what is it? I think it was 4 million 3 years ago. We then had to add that onto the rates. Yeah. So yes, because we are setting a budget based on gross money. So what I really want to see an outcome out of this working group is that we, going forward, stop rating on the projected gross money, because it's becoming a burden on us all later on down the track. Yeah. Kia ora.
Great insight. Right, take a big breath.
Good afternoon, Scott. Just reading through the points on page 54. Point number 3, the lack of data on the issue was clear. A move to collect the appropriate data was agreed. And the group to inform the future plan and decision on writing off the debt. Do we have this information for us today?
No, not for today. So that's part of that working group, is to establish that data. So just to that point that Kelly's just raised too, is creating a future plan and managing this operationally means we need to be clear around what impact this has. We need to be clear on what we need to do with our communities and with that current group around write-offs, what these changes to the terminology around unused land, what impact that will have, and what batches we do that we put forward to write off. So if you recall also, this is just a verbal update with a little bit of information here, but actually it's the June Kuaka meeting where we'll have a full report for you on this. Because this group's active, we should be able to provide you with a really good position on exactly where we're at and what that plan looks like going forward. So the first thing the working group will do is probably establish exactly what the tasks are that they need to do and outline what those look like, and then we'll be able to create some financial forecasting probably around that is what I would expect. And then you've got a clear view of what we're doing going forward. But really this sits, I believe in our operation. This is operationally, we need to get up to speed and moving with this. And that's what we're trying to do. So the questions you're asking are great, but we're probably sitting here going, we don't have the full answers yet. We need to get that. We've got all the pieces. We just need to put it together.
So what's the timeline on forming the group then?
We should have that done by the end of this week. We already have the stakeholders based on the workshop. And we already discussed the streams and how different teams needed to sit across those streams. We just need to pull that group together and get cracking. Saying that, the finance and the rating team are already working on stuff. The data team are already collecting data and making amendments based on questions we raised. And we'll continue to do that.
Okay. And just talking about the 16 policies, it's come up time and time again within our meetings. And I know that the core focus has been on the remission of rates, which we actually have as part of our policies too, and 90A and 90B, power of the chief executive for those write-offs. Time and time again, we keep coming up with the same kōrero that ka pai, you know, it's quite strange that all of a sudden every other policy needs to be changed or amended to make sure that it aligns with this single goal of ours. Why can we not, and on the back of Kahi Ka Moko's kōrero, why can we not just proceed towards that and carry on as per the request of the elected members within our te kuaka hui? Because I don't think once have any of us said that let's look at all 16 policies at the same time as we are collating the data to take to the CEO for his consideration for the write-offs. So why haven't we done that? Why haven't we focused all on that and just everything catches up?
It's a good point. And
Unless somebody else has heard otherwise throughout our meetings, but I can't recall any one of us mentioning that let's do this all together. It's just been one full focus. Everything else catches up on the way.
yeah, so just on the policies, we know that there's relationships between the varying policies, hence they're grouped together and to be reviewed together. And the timeline given for that is 12 months to complete that. And
Can I just, through the chair?
yeah,
So, thank you for your question. So I've got a staff member who's working on this at the moment. The first step that we take in a policy review is we put a project concept together. I want to have a look at that project concept and see what they're saying in that project concept. It is taking the approach of reviewing all the policies, but just had some further information come back from Tohono the last little while. That person's been on leave and just came back from leave a couple of weeks ago. So I just want to let her find her feet and write that document. So the first step we've got with that is to put it in front of SLT and then to bring it up to council and consider it. So taking what you've said, that can be focused in one area without having to review every single of our 18 policies we've got. I'll have a look at that project concept and see what that's telling us and put it in front of SLT. That's all right.
What's the timeline for that then? Because what I'm hearing is that you're saying yes to what I've been asking about. And so now I'm saying, well, what's the timeline for that? Is that the same timeline as the June 27th?
At the moment, we're probably on that time scale. I've got to go and see what this where she's at. So I want to give her some space to write that because she's going to be tasked with going through it and doing this review. So apologies, I can't give you an exact time frame. So until I see what that looks like. Our standard review process for policies is 12 months. Because we've got to avoid a judicial review because that's probably the biggest thing we're trying to do. So we follow due process. We follow under the Local Government Act to do that. We've got to go for public consultation, depending on whether it's significant.
Will we go through a judicial review if it's the Amendment Act, if it's legislated?
It's not. This is under the Local Government Act. So our rating relief policies and rating postponements and remissions are done under the Local Government Act. So we've got to follow the rules in the Local Government Act for our relief policies. This is under a different piece of legislation. The write-off.
To add to Tamati's question, so the policies will not conflict with the Amendment Act anyway?
No.
So the staff member who's working on the policies is in the working group as well.
Yeah.
So she'll be tied in with where that's going to go.
And the reason for that being is that clearly those levers, and when we're looking at all this information, is going to lead into the information needed if we're going to reform policies and make improvements to better cater and serve the community. So we need that. Just to answer your first point is we can still do write-offs in the interim. And just the other thing that I raised with the workshop was actually what are we doing to mitigate rate relief? So again, Rating Act is debt relief signed off by the CEO. Policies is council designed policies to support the community in rate relief. So they are two separate things, but actually they overlap because clearly if we end up writing a whole lot off, we'd be asking what's our policies fit for purpose. So hence the bringing them together because they do overlap, but they don't stop us writing off in the interim, which is what we said we would propose to do, if that's clear.
We've got a sense of the complexity of the journey you have to take us on, and you're hearing the anxiety. We need to be there yesterday.
Yeah.
So if we can get you to get on your road, that'd be really helpful. So Roger, lead from the front, push everybody behind you, let's go. There's a, and the Bible talks about the 50-year jubilee where they forgave debt. Maybe read the Bible and figure out what percentage allowed them to forgive debt. Chapter and verse. Yeah, find out. Thank you. Yeah. So someone will need to help me with that one. Yeah, just hold that thought. So we've received your report. We understand you're hearing our impatience to getting a resolution. Yeah. And please help us get it. Yeah, so Dolly, Harold, Wayne, you've given us a report. Anything we need to mini or?
If you have any questions on it, Tanya Steen is here to answer them, but we have no further update than what's in the report.
Kelly's.
Can they raise their hand, Tanya?
I just can't remember. Oh, yep, so the last I heard there was meant to be some maintenance done to the tree. Have we done that? Kia ora, through the chair. My name is Tanya Steen. Yes, so we've carried out 2 tree assessments. The assessments tend to contradict one another. So the original assessment said that the tree needed more work and needed to be held up. The second assessment said that it's actually taking root, it's quite healthy, it's got some new signs of life. It needed a little bit of pruning, but otherwise, in essence, it's good. So we'll be carrying out annual tree assessments to ensure that it stays.
Great, thank you.
I just want to add, I think it's important for council to meet with Ngā Hapu or Ahipara to just talk about what's happened and yeah, I don't like the report in its present state, which is going on about a structure. I think the first thing we have to do is hui with Ngā Hapu or Ahipara, and I see it's something that's coming up in the hearings, Moringai. So that's, and one, there's about 2 submissions there, which has already been resolved, where it requests Moringai to become historic reserve. But before even that, I would like to see us have that hui about where to from here, what does it mean? What does it mean for Ngā Hapu, etc. That's all, and I don't want us to talk about a structure or their kouta. That's not important, but yeah, we know.
You there, Harry?
Relationships are really important. We all know.
The name Lani.
So we're working with Lani to arrange a meeting. Yeah.
She's in the hot seat for Matai Airport as well.
Okay, goodbye. Thank you. So let's go to Katai Airport. So we note the report here. It is short and bland, which doesn't talk about the dynamics that sit behind this. Noting this particular status, and we do have Maitaka Tōrero who can speak to this. Wallace, you want to add to it, or you want to look the other way?
Noting that might be best to be done in PX, so that's up to you.
Yeah.
Public experience, because we're live, well, not live.
Recording.
We're
This is recording, so.
Will be posted.
Take it into.
Yeah.
Probably should.
Okay.
Do it later?
Yeah, when are we going to PX?
I think we got through your report.
So we can, happy, we can still move.
Yeah.
Motion.
Yeah.
Move the motion.
So in front of us is at the Te Kuaka Te Māori Committee received a report, progress update on outstanding reports to the committee. Suva, thanks Kelly. Second.
I'd already moved it.
Kelly seconded.
You did, that's right, I remember now.
And no more further questions.
You there, Harry?
Oh yeah, thanks Matty.
Can I just go back to the one about the tree at Ahipara? What is being done at this very moment? Because it's an eyesore. You know, I've had a few complaints come through because council bought it and it's just sitting there with an old shed
I was there 3 weeks ago. There was chairs thrown out on the grass. It's a bloody eyesore. What are we doing about it? Are we got just excuses or what?
Maddie, I think there was a commitment from Lani's group to meet with that hapu and move through the next stage. And that could stand up the chair. You okay with that approach? I'll say that's a yes. Okay, thanks, Tori. So that we're on.
Just forget about it.
Oh, sorry.
Oh,
that last.
sorry, all in favour of moving that last resolution? Aye. Against? Those who don't want to be in the room? Aye. Thank you. Thanks, Lani.
Fine. So report 6.4, and in the interest of time, I'm going to take it as read, maybe not the attachments because they were 1,000 pages plus long. Reason why I'm bringing this to Te Kuaka is so that it is on radar of Te Kuaka, and we are happy and organising still for our workshop. Workshop for Te Kuaka, which will have an external facilitator brought in, and particularly wanting this to be noted for council and for council staff around the importance of understanding what this inquiry was and how it affects council. And so for today, we're just putting it on the radar, putting it down as active work program so that we can go to the next stages of organising a workshop. Any questions? This is information taken directly from the Ministry of Justice too, so nothing in here has been adopted for council.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Lani, and our staff. This is the sort of stuff that at council level, I always wanted council to be around decision making and use our committees to inform us. So I'm happy for staff or for committee members to proactively send through things to put it on a formal agenda as a way of getting it on the table for us to discuss, or there is potentially elected members in here who actually would never realise that something so significant affecting, you know, half of far northerners has actually happened. So this is the way of us being able to be kept up to date or briefed on things like that. So whenever we have any one of our Te Kahu or Tainui iwi organisations annual reports come through, chuck together a cover page and put it on our agenda so that we actually read it. All that sort of stuff I want to see come through here. So anything to do Te Kahu, Tainui, Te Ao Māori, any information like that, put it through like this, and I don't expect staff to have specific commentary around implications to them or anything like that. It can just purely be something for you to read to keep you up to date and in the know. So thank you very much for this.
Is that the full stop of our corridor? Oh, Sam.
Sure.
So be cold.
I'm going to try and be 3 minutes here. Put the stop card on the clock. Thank you for the report and thank you for the information, including that you said an outside facilitator to provide.
We are planning on it, yes.
Can I suggest this? That, and I don't know who you are considering, but you have in the room and in our networks rangatiratanga and understanding of he whakaputa and te tiriti waitangi as it is understood by, as it is contextualised by, and as it is held dearly by ngā pinoranga tira o roto o te papa o te raki. And so I would ask you to consider that you invite the kaha o Taonga to come and provide a workshop and to provide you with that understanding. As an extension to that request for your consideration, also please consider this, that we are blessed to live right where we are. And that the place where these two taonga were signed is less than 30 minutes away. Harry will give me a growling afterwards if what I'm about to say is out of order, but we invite you on behalf of Kaho Taonga to invite the Kaho Taonga to host you and take you to Waitangi. We've all been to Waitangi, but I don't know that everybody in the organisation has been hosted at Waitangi by ngā peitiaki o he whakaputanga me te tiriti Waitangi. And that's what we are suggesting. Why? Because to contextualize these reports that are coming from the tribunal, you've got to get to some very visceral, even sometimes uncomfortable, but always respectful conversations. And I'll give you an example. The tribunal said when it published the stage 2 report that it felt that it was incumbent upon them to, amongst other things, further develop treaty principles. And why they said that is because they said that before their tribunal, evidence before them, exclusively, that they had been provided evidence that no other tribunal nor court in the land had ever been brought before another tribunal. I would even extend to say court in the world, because we know that such matters have also been outside of this land to Privy Council, for example. It's incumbent, I believe, on the senior managers and leaders, including councillors of the Whanau District Council, to understand the whakaputunga me te tiriti o Waitangi in the context of Tino Rangatiru Power. Harry hasn't grounded yet, so I'll say, long time to be good there. Te kaha o Taonga, I'd like you to consider asking Te kaha o Taonga to provide that workshop and learning opportunity for the council.
Just turned my back and looked to the boss.
Happy to take that as our advice. We'll get in touch and reach out to the cover.
Can I just, me, all our people, this is the 14th year of the claims, really, and this is only stage 2. I welcome this report into this council room. I welcome the wairua that comes with it, the long fight, the long fights, and they haven't finished. Ngā mihi ki ngā hapu katoa, ngā rōpū katoa, ngā kai kōrero katoa. I took my students to these claims, and the first one, the ones I can recall were Lucky Aldridge saying it's about the rules of engagement. Who sets the rules of engagement and how you engage? Rima Edwards, who asked that his whakapapa from Ranginui and Tapatuanuku not be recorded, and he was only given 15 minutes and how fast he spoke. Hirini Hinari, who was so nervous, he was dressed up in his rāpaki. He was so nervous we thought he had a gun on him as part of his kākau. We were really scared he was that nervous that he might let it shoot off. You know, he maha ngā kai kōrero I taua time. So mihi atu for the long struggle, and welcome this report to this council room. And the mana that it brings, and I just want to note that the tribunal sort of acknowledged what ngā puhi nui tonu already knew, and just reconfirmed it actually. And so aha ko he hanga mahi o tēnei kawanatanga. Mōhio e pūmau tonu ana ngā Māori ki tēnei kaupapa, ki i nei kōwhiringa mō te hakaputanga me te treaty o Waitangi. And I don't think this current government can unpick. They may slam us around in a few places, but ngā mihi ki tēnei kaupapa, and it's not done, and I look forward to whatever Ngāpui comes up with in your new framework, because one of the things that people keep getting stuck in, and I know when we did a submission for the fast track amendment, or just really wanted to change the narrative around settlement to reparations, and that, you know, like people should stop saying that there's only one framework for settlements, because there's to date there's been many variations, and I mean, who would think that people would get charged for cloud storage? I mean, you know what I mean? So there's lots of alternative framework. Anyhow, tani ngā mihi ko tēnei kaupapa e ngā mihi ki ngā kaimahi.
Very much to say something what Hilda said, because I think what she said sparked what I think might be a valuable contribution and thought here. We talk about treaty settlements. Actually, can we please not speak of the Papua Taraki inquiry and address that as necessary under that inquiry in the same breath as saying a treaty settlement. Treaties are not settled. Grievances are settled. Treaties are not settled, treaties are honoured. So just adding to what Hilda had said, in that context, that we seek to honour the treaty, we seek to settle grievances, but this like he's talking about in the context of quote unquote treaty settlement.
Te hemana e tautoko na hau I ngā porero a Hilda. E taku hoa piripono Sam, even though he jumped the speaking order. It would be my privilege to move this recommendation and turn it into a motion. I note that the wellbeing pathway that was presented at Te Kahango Taunui hui last week, Mr. Chairman, really has he whakaputanga te Tiriti o Waitangi central to it. So it's connecting up all of those strategies, and I think that document is a leader, which would be good reading for council, and I'm glad that it's on the table. Dolly, kia ora koutou.
Okay, so just hold that thought of the first meeting, just finalise.
Oh yeah, I'm happy to second it, and I just wanted to signal to staff, when it's so awesome to have SLT in the room. One of the recommendations is that Crown land is all returned. So we need to evaluate the benefits. It's a benefit for you. The benefits to council financially for that. And yeah, I think we need to start that process.
So Peter moves this. So how do I put this receive to recommend?
It's a, oh, no, but he's, sorry, through the chair, now that he's moved the recommendation, it is a motion, so you have a second to render.
Just receive all Crown council owned land.
Okay, so moved by Peter, second by Kelly. All in favour?
Aye.
Again, looking at the screen as well, so. Okay. Passed, thank you. Yeah. Oh, Ollie, you're on 6.1.
61. If there's any questions.
Okay, so the reports that are in here, Dolly's really answered any questions, for Dolly? Over the report.
Page 61.
166. So Dolly, unless you want to parachute ourselves to Nirvana, and I just, if I move in a second for the resolution that it said, that Kuaka, tell my April to you have to go for agree the report. Mover. Hilda, second. Thanks, Tor. All in favour? Thanks. Okay, thanks. Thanks, Dolly, for the walk of fame. Oh, you'll tell me you've got 6.6. Okay, so we've got the report in here. Those haven't read it, are there any questions? Those who haven't read it, you want to tell you the courtesy of giving you an elevator pitch, what you wrote about. Okay. So let's see what. Is it a shorter walk?
Oh, he no te kōrero. We had a meeting at Rawani and pai te rongo ki ngā moe o te hautainga ki reira. So they've been given an asset to put out funds and it's become problematic at the moment, but they reminded me of our start in our kura and our wānanga journey, and I suppose they got a bit annoyed with us. Yeah, that'll be right. And now beginning to ask that whenua come back. But the really, back to them, but the really great thing is that they have all of these courses, and one of them was nursing, and that all that they're training people to go and work up in the Hokianga hospital. And they needed North Tech. I suppose that's you, Tor. You probably might want to add. Your North Tech people were really good and pretty much wanted confirmation that they could get, a longer lease for these nursing programs. They were going to staircase about 3 over 9 years, so that enrolled nurses could go directly into Hokianga. So that was wonderful. Plus all these other, there were going to be courses that were to be funded with qualifications, and there were just those that were, aroha courses that were of benefit to well-being and stuff like that. So, yeah, I just really want to tautoko that rōpū, ki puna o kupu nuku, and their lineup was all impressive. Their trustees are all ex-Māori principals of small schools and others, and Ririata Makiha, of course, and Riri's gonna, challenge anything there. But there are works that need to be done, and it's not probably the council's role to do that, but we may need to have sort of it's not even my job, but to think about other avenues, whether that's joint ventures with other organisations. We had the pleasure of Tuku Morgan last week talking to us, and the opportunities that could be there should any of us in the farm put our hands up, but we're so standalone, probably won't. But yeah, whenano he pai te rā rōpū. I do worry about the compliance things, and I know there's a meeting with fire tomorrow here at 10 o'clock, is it? 10 o'clock
on the site?
Yeah. So, it'll be things like, the report looks a bit bad, saying 11 buildings aren't meeting compliance, but there might be 2 good ones that are working. I don't know. So, I will and also what support can come from
my,
yes.
yeah. No, not quite. Just in in response to you, so tika ana te tawa kōrero, we do want to awhi and tautoko Waiapu entity in their aspirations. So some of that can be provided through Nortec. And we know, so on the books, this will be a loss because there's nothing to be gained through the Nortec process at the moment by doing this. But over time, things start small and slowly grow cumulatively. The question mark is how long do we hang on in there in terms of that until we see the turn. So we'll continue just from that end.
Mr. Chairman, the letter, page 70, provides a good process with it, where things are up to. Some may call me pedantic, I think it's a significant thing. She provides the Māori that Tanya signs off on that letter. Or is it just a dialectual thing that I don't understand? I'm talking about the opening meeting. KK. You know, earlier in the meeting, we're talking about how important Te Reo Māori is. We would not accept this in English. If it's wrong, make it correct. He does provide the Māori.
Who's Tanya?
Oh, me, I'm Tanya.
Yeah, Tanya signed off on the letter.
Yes, I did.
So who provides the Māori for that?
So obviously staff that I work with obviously provide this.
Yeah.
And I definitely need to work on my Te Reo Māori as well, obviously. Just wanted to be able to understand it, the typos. So I appreciate your confidence.
If I don't point it out, it may be done again. That's my point. Thank you.
Harry, what I don't understand is the commercial lease of the building is one thing. The lease of the domestic is another, and there are differences in the lease agreements and the act compliances to meet those leases. In a domestic lease, you have to provide a warm, livable facility for someone to live in or occupy. In a commercial, it doesn't seem as though you have to do that. So, correspondingly, what are the conditions in terms of the lease in order to look at providing a building for education that is up to a standard where people feel comfortable and healthy in it, as they would in a domestic lease. So what change do we target to bring that building or have a commitment to bring that building up to a standard inside the 70-year lease agreement?
Through the chair, so it's a ground lease, and so this is a lease that was entered into well before my time in council, so I can't speak to the finer details and clauses within that lease. But though the buildings and structures on that site were taken as an as-is whereas condition with people of Kupanuku. So, and it was so obviously they took on the obligations to look at the buildings of compliance. So that's the lease that we're dealing with at the moment. And as you can see in the report that clearly there is work that needs to be done on those buildings. They're struggling to do that. So obviously our recommendation is to look at a longer term lease to enable them to be able to get some funding to support.
You got no capex. See the side for this one. There's no capex from council. Got some capex from.
Good on you. Amen. Thank you.
Sounds like we've got an action point.
I'm going to move that.
Thanks, Wallace. Yeah, just the recommendations that Te Kuaka really received. Someone's moving, please. Thanks away. Over.
Right.
Thanks.
Thank you. Well done, Tanya. Now we.
Yes. Okay, so we're going to move into exclusion. So I'll read the recommendation. Committee will reading and who's that Patty McNamara, who's online from Simpson Greer Centre to join the public. And vice someone who. Thank you, Kelly. Someone second. Thanks for that. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Thank you. Take a breath, everybody. Good, Patty.
Ate Māori.